G'day gang, welcome to Two Blokes from Down Under. I'm Simon Guthrie. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Ben Ennis. How are you, Benny?
I'm great, mate, and you?
Very well, thank you.
It's good.
Ben, Season 2 of Two Blokes from Down Under is brought to us by Ken Muston Automotive. For all your motoring needs, pop down and see the team for Isuzu Ute, Ram trucks, MG, Jeep, Subaru and Mercedes-Benz. That's Ken Muston Automotive, 215 Benalla Road, Shepparton. And Ben, this episode's brought to us by the Congupna Football and Netball Club, home of the mighty Roaders. The Roaders known for the family club, playing the Murray Football League. So if you like supporting local football and netball, make sure you check out this great club. You can find them in Catamatite Road, Congupna, or find them on their Facebook page. Now, Benny.
Simon.
There's not very often that we get a guest in that has stood in the middle of the MCG in front of 100,000 people.
Yeah, it's big.
And then backed it up the next week with 98,000 people.
Huge.
Pretty exciting.
It is.
So, let's get into it. And not only did he stand in there, he dominated in both games. Absolutely dominated.
Yep.
So let's get into it. Okay, so recruited from Wodonga in the Ovens of Murray Football League to the big smoke of Arden Street, North Melbourne, where he fulfilled his and so many young kids' dreams to play at the MCG in front of 100,000 people on the biggest day of the VFL AFL season. Not only did he do it once, he did it twice in the same year after the drawn grand final in 1977, where he was able to hold the Premiership Cup above his head. He played 10 seasons in the VFL and then went on to have an outstanding coaching career in the country football, adding another 2 premierships to his resume. He's a teacher by trade, and nowadays he's a part-time teacher and part-time runaround for his 10 grandkids. Welcome to Two Blokes from Down Under, Xavier Tanner. How are you, Max?
Thank you, Simon. A lovely intro. And
welcome.
Thank you, Ben. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you.
So I'm going to refer to Xavier most of the episode as Max. So, Max, what's the story behind that?
Behind Max.
Yep.
A bit of a funny one, because way back in 1973, when I was doing Year 12, 72 in fact, right at the end of 72, and they had to choose the school captain for the following year in Year 12, and I put my name up for it along with 5 other good friends of mine who are outstanding people and still friends with them these days. And the principal, who was getting on a bit, you know, he would have been in his 70s, he announced the captain for 1973 as Max Tanner. And I got the shock of my life because I didn't think I was really in the running for it. And I had to go up and accept. And, of course, everyone had a bit of a laugh because my name's Xavier. And the Max caught on.
Yeah.
I asked, Brother Heed was his name, this principal, and he said, "Oh, sorry about that. I knew a Max Tanner back in 1933 or something." Oh. And he just got a bit confused. He was getting a bit. So that's how I got the name initially. So all my friends started calling me Max during that Year 12 year. Yep. Anyway, I went to Melbourne and thought, that's the end of that. A couple of my friends were at Newman College, where I lived for a number of years, and occasionally they'd call me Max, but I thought I'd got rid of it. Ron Barassi called me Zav, and that sort of was a bit of a nickname for me at North. And then I came up to Shepparton in 1986, so 13, 14 years later. And we trained at the Shep High Oval. We used to run from the Deakin Reserve to Chapman Oval for pre-season. And after the first night of training, I'm running back, and a couple of guys, including David Lewis, unfortunately not with us anymore, but Louis was a great friend. And he came up to me and said, "Well, the boys have been chatting, and we decided we can't be calling you Xavier on the footy ground. It's just too hard. So we've come up with the next best name with an X in it. We're going to call you Max." And that is a pure coincidence.
Really?
Yeah. So I had it in my Year 12 year, and then David Lewis decided that I was going to be Max Tanner at the Shepparton Footy Club.
Wow.
And there were times even in the press, in the Shep News, where it wasn't Xavier, it was Max Tanner. That's how common it became.
Yeah.
So it was a bit weird.
Awesome. So that's why I refer to him as Max. That's how
I made it pretty well known at school that I didn't like it much. I've got no issues with it in the football and out and about and that, but I never got called Max at school by the staff.
Well, because you were coaching and stuff, and then a lot of the younger, also even the kids used to say that because they knew you sort of as that around the football club and that. So, that's it.
That's the story.
All right, well, let's go right back to the beginning. Where did it start, Max? Where were you born?
Yeah, born and raised in Wodonga. In fact, I'm the only true Victorian in my family. I've got 5 siblings, 3 older sisters, a younger sister and a younger brother. And in those days, the Mercy Hospital in Albury was the gun hospital for childbirth and so forth. And mum and dad would go over to Albury to give birth to their children. I was in a bit of a hurry, apparently. So Dad had to rush Mum to the Wodonga Hospital, and I was born at the Wodonga Hospital. So I'm a true blue Victorian. Yeah, so lived there from 56 I was born, and, played lots of sport. I was right into anything sporty, and went to school at St Augustine's in Wodonga, but all the boys in those days used to go over to the Christian Brothers School in Albury. Yeah. So at grade 3, I hopped on the bus with the rest of them, and we went over to the all-boys Christian Brothers School at St Pat's in Albury.
Yeah.
And then secondary school out to a place called Aquinas College.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Aquinas College was also all boys, and I'm not sure when it happened, maybe in the 80s or something, but the girls' school in Albury was St Joey's, and the boys' school was Aquinas in North Albury. And they combined and became one high school out where Aquinas is now, or was. And I think there's a junior school in Albury. I'm not sure of that, but they're all co-ed now.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it, it's called Xavier High School. Nothing to do with me, but people think that they named it after me. It's absolute rubbish, of course. But it's called Xavier High School.
I'd tell them that.
Yeah, outstanding student, school captain, named after me, bro.
So that was my early days, and look, I loved all sports, but my favourite sport was cricket by a long way. I was
really
very keen to play cricket for Australia. I had a Norman O'Neill bat, and then I got the big Stuart Surridge, and I don't know if those names mean anything to you, but I love cricket, and I was a batsman, couldn't bowl to save myself. I used to roll some leg breaks over, but that was about it. But
how old were you then?
In 12, 13, started playing. I played earlier than that, but played for Wodonga Cricket Club, and they played in the Albury and Border Cricket Association, so all of our cricket was associated with New South Wales systems.
Yeah.
So I played a lot of rep cricket in the juniors. We had some success in the under-16s, was the juniors, and then the following year I went to the seniors and played B grade and then A grade in 1973. So we won, I think, a premiership in our under-16 year, and we won the premiership in my senior year in 1973 when I was in year 12. And I was so homesick when I went to Melbourne and started training with North and everything, and just before, I think it was the Friday before my first game, this is going to sound crazy, I hitchhiked home to Wodonga to go to the cricket presentation night with my cricketing mates. Hopped on the train the next morning, on Saturday morning, and went straight from Spencer Street, took a taxi to the Lake Oval where I've played my first game for North in the reserves.
Wow.
So, I mean, just ridiculous. Mum and Dad couldn't believe it when I walked in the door that night.
I bet.
Yeah, so...
let's go back a little bit. So, Mum and Dad, were they sporty?
Yes, Dad played... that's a good story. Dad passed away in January at 104 months. So,
really? This year?
We had a fantastic send-off for him, this year.
Wow.
So he was born in 1921, So a magnificent life, but he was a very good footballer. He went to De La Salle in Melbourne. They were raised in Carnegie. His dad was a primary school principal, and they moved around Victoria a bit, but they spent a few different occasions in Melbourne. And Dad went to De La Salle with his brother Xavier, his older brother Xavier. So Xavier went to the war, didn't come back. He's buried in New Guinea, and so I was the first son of one of his brothers, Gerald. That was my dad's name, Jerry, they called him, and I was named after him. So that's a bit of a story there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And he went from De La Salle to St Kevin's in year 11. Dad, I think De La Salle must have only gone to year 10, and they finished up playing football against each other. His dad was a very good footballer. Xavier was a good footballer without being outstanding, according to my father. Said he was a better footballer than him. And they played against each other on one occasion at the ground on Waverley Road, where I played a bit of cricket many years later, of course.
Yeah, okay.
So Dad was a very good footballer and played, I think, a lot of games, I'm not sure how many, in the Richmond reserves. But the problem there in those days was he left school at year 10, as a lot of kids were forced out of school to go into employment, and he could easily have gone on and done year 12. My mother was the same. She left school at year 10 to work in the bank. Very different times, of course.
Yeah. Did Mum play sport?
Not to my knowledge. I think she
Okay.
played a little bit of netball and certainly tennis, but
Yeah.
never in a big league or anything like that.
Yeah.
But Dad played reserves for Richmond, but with the Railways, you had to work every second weekend. So he'd played a good game, then he had to work. So he was never really in line for a game.
Yeah.
But he got the phone call one Saturday morning to say that so-and-so, I can't remember the name of the guy, on the wing was out sick and you've got a game. So he got his one game at Punt Road and he got the first kick of the game. I remember I looked up the archives at the State Library for the Sporting Globe.
Yeah.
You know, that pink newspaper that used to come out on Wednesday? And he was named in the best and they said he had great potential. But, of course, out the next week because he had to work. So he only had finished up with one game for Richmond. He said he got the first kick. Jack Dyer was the ruckman and coach. Hit it out to Dad on the wing. Dad kicked it down to hit Jack Titus on the chest and Jack kicked the first goal.
Oh, wow.
So I remember feeling pretty proud when he told me that story.
Yeah. Bit of a shame he only got the one game.
But he just got the one game, but he hated the city. He was born, spent a fair bit of time in country and city, hated the city. Spent a year in Cobram about 1941 during the early war years when there wasn't much footy being played.
Yeah.
South Melbourne were very keen to get him down, and the person who was in charge of the Railways was a Richmond person, and they wouldn't clear him to South Melbourne and kept him in the Railways in Cobram for the rest of that year. He came down and played a few practice games for Richmond the following year, hated the city life, thought, no, bugger this, and he was placed in Wodonga. And he said it was the best thing that ever happened to him.
Yeah.
And he spent the rest of his life virtually in Wodonga. He's had the last sort of 5 years here in Melbourne in an aged care facility, and he enjoyed it there. But from about the age of 25 to 95, he lived in Wodonga. Met Mum there, of course, and so.
And the brothers and sisters, they sporty?
Yes, Adrian, my oldest sister. That's the girl Adrienne.
Yeah.
Yep.
She, they all played netball, all the girls, but her forte was diving. She was a very good diver.
Really?
It's different.
My next sister, Mary Louise, was a very good netballer and tennis player. Julian was an outstanding swimmer.
Yeah.
And netballer too, very aggressive. I wish I had half of her aggression, and I would have been a better footballer. My younger sister Jacinta was an outstanding swimmer, Victorian champion at a young age, 12 or 13, and a very good netballer and basketballer as well.
Yeah.
And Bernard, my younger brother, was a very good footballer. Now North went to watch him. He's 9 years younger than me. He was born in 65, and he was having a very good year at Wodonga, and he was being looked very carefully at by North because there was a connection there, obviously.
Yeah.
But he did his knee badly.
Oh,
And it was around about the same time Paul Salmon did his knee, and it was the same sort of injury. And he never really recovered from that. He played a lot of football after that, but he's got 2 crook knees now and limps around a bit, but he was a very good footballer as well. Played the Essendon guy, I can't remember, Roberts. Was it Ken Roberts? Remember him?
Oh, I don't remember.
He was a pretty tough sort of bugger, and he went up and coached Lavington, and apparently Bernard had some run-ins with him. He was a pretty fiery sort of fellow, very different personality to me.
Yeah.
So he tells some good stories about his time at Wodonga Footy Club.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and he then went and studied at Bendigo and played for Sandhurst. And towards the end of my career, I'll talk about that later, maybe I finished up playing some games with him at Sandhurst.
Yeah, okay.
Sounds like Mum and Dad were the busiest people on the
Yeah.
planet.
Yes.
A lot of
That's
travel,
a lot of sport.
Yeah,
A lot of kids.
But in those days, everyone rode their bike everywhere, but
Yeah.
and got around the place pretty
Yeah.
well. But they were busy, most certainly. And,
Yeah.
Dad didn't miss too many of my cricket games or footy games, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He was
Nice.
pretty keen
So
follower.
you were the favourite son.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, Bernard, hope you're not listening to this.
So when did you start with the football?
Started with the Wodonga midgets. There were sub-midgets and then the midgets and then the juniors. I think the sub-midgets were maybe under 9s.
Yeah.
Then the midgets might have been under 12s, and then the juniors was under 16s. So I played. Wodonga had these very strangely named teams. There were the Blues, the Gold, the Maroons, and the Blacks.
Oh.
So they were the teams, and I played with the Blues, and it was great fun. We played at Martin Park in Wodonga, and when I got to the under 16s, I was playing some good footy, and I played 5 games. I'm pretty sure it was 5 games for the Blues. And Tony Conway, who was a wonderful Wodonga person who was heavily involved in the footy club, came around one night to talk to Mum and Dad and said, look, he wanted to take me into the reserves, the Wodonga reserves, at the tender age of 16. So Mum and Dad thought, yeah, that's a good idea, as long as he's protected and everything. So I've played the rest of the year in the reserves in 1972, that was.
Yeah.
So I'd just gone 16. And unfortunately, it doesn't really matter, but in the votes, the best and fairest in the juniors, I got 14 votes and finished second.
Oh, really?
By a couple of votes. So I got 4 best on grounds and a 2 voter in the 5 games I played. And
in 5 games?
In 5 games I got 14 votes. And I think the winner got 16 votes or something. So I missed out. But no, I really enjoyed my time playing against the men in the reserves.
Yeah.
And then I went on and had my first senior year in 73. Mick Bone, you might remember him, but he's famous. He played for Collingwood and then came up and coached Wodonga, but he's famous for the 1964 Melbourne flag. Game was very tight towards the end. I haven't seen it, but this is the story he told, and he decided he would go from the forward pocket and run down the ground to try and get a kick and win the game for Collingwood. Unfortunately, his man John Beckwith, who's quite a famous Melbourne footballer back pocket, followed him down, and John Beckwith kicked the winning goal for Melbourne. And they blamed, I think they blamed Mick Bone for that loss. But but he was a tough little rover, and his sons went on, and Simon in particular played a lot of footy for Wodonga and did very well.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was good fun, and I finished, I think, second in the best and fairest that year as a 17-year-old. So
17 in the seniors.
Yeah, so that was good. I got the award for the under-21 award for the league.
Yeah. Did you play back then? Did they have like carnivals and stuff for the young kids, like what they do now? And
they played the O&M played against other leagues, similar to what GV might play the O&M.
Yeah.
But I can remember playing one game as a curtain raiser in maybe the under-18s at Corowa, and we played the game, and I can't remember much about it, but the thing I remember about that day was there was a great player who played a lot of games for Wanga Rovers, and Neville Hogan coached them as well, and he was a gun, and we were in the rooms after we'd finished our game and the senior side had gone out to play, and Neville Hogan was carried back in. I'll never forget that. So they'd obviously targeted him.
Yeah.
In probably the first bounce and knocked him out, and I think they stitched him up, and he went back on and played well, and the O&M were pretty strong in those days, and they still are. Finished up winning the game, and I think they were playing against some team from some league from southern New South Wales, the North West League or something.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, that's my only memory of playing rep footy. There wasn't a lot of rep footy in those days.
Yeah.
Nothing like the bushies or anything like that, of course.
When did you realise that, I'm pretty good at this game, and realise that you were a standout sort of thing compared to a lot of the other guys?
I don't think I ever thought of it that way. I loved the game and just enjoyed getting a kick, and I had no idea that North were looking at me, because apparently I found out later that they'd come up and sent their recruiters up to have a look a few times. And then late that year, in November, because it was the day before my last year 12 exam, 2 guys knocked on the door, and one was Ron Joseph and the other one was Alan Killigrew. So Ron Joseph was the secretary of the club, and Alan Killigrew was a past coach. He's a bit famous himself for lots of things, Alan Killigrew. They both stand about 5'4", and anyway, they walked in and sat with Mum and Dad, and Dad had to get me. I was studying in my room, would you believe, getting ready for my last exam, which was Latin. I did Latin for 6 years at secondary school. Don't ask me to say anything in Latin. So
that served you well, Latin.
They sat down. Yeah, it's helped my English a lot, I hope.
Okay.
We'll talk about that another time, perhaps. So they sat down with Mum and Dad and suggested that they wanted me to come down. There was no sort of signing on or anything. It was O&M was the North Melbourne zone.
That was their zone.
So a lot of players from the O&M went to North those days. And they said, you can do year 12 again. We'll put you through school at one of the schools in Melbourne. I said, well, that's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to do year 12 again. And I was pretty keen to go to Melbourne to uni. The sort of dream of playing cricket and everything was sort of behind me now, because I'd done well in football that year and really thought that there was more opportunities for me in football than cricket. I'd played some rep games up in Sydney and they'd shown some interest in me, but I think Melbourne was the pull. And I had 3 sisters down there already. There was family down there, and that was a real pull for me to go to Melbourne. So football took over after cricket, and I finished up going to North.
You didn't get any brown paper bags with a couple of notes in it?
No.
Okay. North were pretty famous for that. So
they were in the with the 10-year rule with John Randell and Brent Croswell and Doug Wade. I think was he got the brown paper bag. No.
You didn't get it.
The only brown paper bag I got was when you're on an airline, an aeroplane, and you're not feeling too well. Yeah. That's as close as I've got to getting a brown paper bag.
So you went to North. How old were you then? 17, or you turned
17. No, I was turning 18 that May in 74. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So 74 was my first year at North.
74 was it? Okay.
What have you got?
I've got 76.
76 is my first senior year.
First senior, yeah.
So there was under 19s. So in those first 2 years, I was still eligible for under 19s. So I was skipping between thirds and reserves.
Yeah, okay.
So I played a fair bit of reserves games in those 2 years.
How'd you go there in the reserves?
Oh, good. I enjoyed it. It was good fun.
Yeah, but how did you go? Were you, good? Stand out?
I don't know.
He's too humble, this bloke. He's not going to tell us how it really was.
I didn't get a senior game because I couldn't, because you had to be on the list, what they called the list. And I'd never heard of the list.
Yeah, okay.
Because the following year I trained, did the pre-season, and then someone come up to me and said, "Oh, congratulations, you've made the list." And I said, "What's the list?" Now, the list is like, there's 40 players on an AFL team now that they can choose from. That's the list.
That's the list, yeah.
I'd never heard of the list. Anyway, that was good. I got the list. But in 74, 75, it was interesting. Billy Stevens, who was an ex-Fitzroy coach, he was the reserves coach at North then. And then in 75, Ray Jordan took over. I played my first game in the reserves, as I mentioned earlier, on the Lake Oval. And Sam Kekovich, who wasn't a huge pre-season trainer, never got himself fit, often started in the reserves. So I was welcome to the team, and Sam came up and said, "Look, if any trouble happens, just stay close to me, I'll look after you." So we run out, and within about 5 or 10 minutes I realised that I needed to stay away from Sam because he was causing all the trouble.
That's right.
So that was good fun, and in those days, the under-19s played at the opposite oval. So if we were playing South Melbourne at Lake Oval, the under-19s played at the same time as the seniors, but at North, at Hardin Street. So we never got to see, whenever I was playing thirds, we didn't get to see the seniors play.
Yeah, okay.
And in 75, we had a very good under-19 side. I still played a lot of reserves footy, but towards the end, I went back and played the last 3 games to become eligible for the finals, the under-19s. And Richmond were on top, and we were second, or vice versa. I can't remember which was which. But both sides had only lost 1 game during the year to each other.
Yeah, okay.
So that's how tight it was. So we were training in the week leading up to the start of the finals. And we're all called on the Tuesday night, I think, into the coach's room to be told that we'd lost a heap of Premiership points because a player had been played who was ineligible, and we went from second to second last.
Oh.
So that was the end of our finals campaign.
Jesus.
And I felt sorry for the person involved because it wasn't his fault, but it was Stephen Easton. Do you remember him?
Stephen Easton.
He was a ruckman.
Yeah, okay.
Nice fellow, and played a few games. I don't know how many he played. Didn't play a lot of senior footy after that. Might have played 40, 50 games or something. So he was a good player. But he was tied to Geelong. And North had fiddled the book somehow, and they were at fault, apparently, from what I heard later, and done the wrong thing, and he'd played in most of the games that year.
Yeah, okay.
And we lost all the points from every game that he played in. So that was a bit sad.
That's not
Very
ideal.
sad.
No, and the disappointing thing was, I could have played on the MCG and enjoyed myself, and I had 2 really good mates who were playing for Richmond, who I was at uni with. Yeah. And we were really looking forward to, battling against each other that year, but didn't happen.
Missed out. How daunting is it when you're a country kid, born and bred in the country, and you head down to the Big Smoke and you play alongside Sam Kekovich?
Yeah, that was a bit scary.
Yeah.
I had a few things like that, but the thing that helped was there was a lot of people from the O&M who had gone down with me. Russell Delaney, one of my best friends from school, he played for Albury and he was recruited to North as well. So we did a lot of stuff together in those early years.
Yeah.
We played in the reserves grand final together in '76, and he was let go, went off, did his own thing, and I continued at North. So that helped a lot. And then we had people like Ross Henshaw, who was from North Albury, who I knew, Gary Cowden from Benalla, Mick Nolan, who I watched play as a kid, who was good friends with John Byrne from Wangaratta, both from Wangaratta. Who else was there? Phil Baker from North Albury, who I played cricket against. He was a fast bowler, pretty intimidating fast bowler by left armour. Yeah. So there was a number of O&M people. So it wasn't so bad. And the other thing that really helped was I lived in Newman College, which was a campus residential college at Melbourne Uni, and just about every young guy there was from the country.
Yeah, okay.
So, 2 or 3 years later, when we were all turning 21, we were darting off to all parts of the country. So I'd go into 21st birthday parties just about every other Saturday night.
Yeah.
So that really helped a lot as well.
Yeah. So back those days, it was train Tuesday, Thursday, play Saturday, and that was it?
Monday nights.
Monday night?
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday night. So Monday was mostly a running fitness night. And then Tuesday was the big night. We trained for 2 hours or so, plenty of running, but lots of ball work and so forth. And Thursday night was usually, 3/4 of an hour really on the track, warm up, just do some really basic drills. And the idea of that was get him in early and then we'd have a team meeting or whatever and go home. So So I lived at Newman, which is in Carlton, and I used to ride my bike to training.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And I reckon I got picked up by the cops about 3 or 4 times because I never had a light on my bike.
Yeah.
And I just told them, look, I've just come from North, training at North, and they'd let me go.
Oh, no worries, mate.
I said,
See you later.
they won't catch me again. 3 weeks later, they caught me again. So I didn't have a car until the following year, the second year in 75.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. How'd you go with mixing your training and your studies when you were there at that time?
I wasn't a huge studier.
Okay.
So I did the bare minimum, you could say. But look, I did enough to get through.
You got through it,
That's pretty much. I was on a thing called a studentship.
Okay.
I wanted to be a dentist, but I didn't quite get the numbers to get into dentistry. And because I'd done interstate HSC, or I did, I did HSC, which is the New South Wales equivalent of the VCE.
Yeah.
And then the dentistry only took a certain number of interstaters, and I just missed out. And they said, look, do a year of science, then we'll look at your marks and we'll take you in.
Yep.
Anyway, I thought that sounds good, but I got offered a studentship, which is a teaching scholarship, which means you get paid to study, and then you have to give the department 3 years of teaching at a minimum. And I thought that sounded pretty good, and it's the best decision I ever made. Yeah. Got lots of friends who are dentists, and they've had a good life, but I was pretty happy being a school teacher. Yeah. I can say that now because I loved it.
Yeah, you've done it for a long time, but it's good that you could get through that at the same time, because it'd be very tiring trying to train 3 nights a week and play Saturdays and then still...
And certainly with the study, if I'd gone into dentistry, it would have been a whole different story, because dentistry would have been flat chat studying. I did a science degree and there was lots of study involved, but it wasn't continuous. It didn't overwhelm me in any way. I was able to do the work that I needed to do and still have a good time and play a bit of footy.
Yeah, nice.
So really my when I look back on it, my preferences were to have a good time while I was at uni, to get through, study well, and then the footy was a bonus.
Yeah, nice.
So probably should have been the other way around.
Ah, well, it is what it is, young blokes.
That's right.
Did you get home much, or mum and dad come down to watch you fairly often?
Oh yeah, Dad was a keen observer, and I found out many years later that there were times when he'd just jump on the train, come down, watch the game, and then hop on the train and go home. I never knew he was there. Yeah. Yeah, because I knew they couldn't get to every game. Yeah. I've got 6 kids, for goodness sake. And, but Mum said that he was at a lot of games when I didn't know it. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. So they were both very keen watchers, but they couldn't get there all the time together. But he was pretty keen.
Yeah, so you got the call up on the list.
The list.
Yeah, the list, that's right.
So that was 76?
76 was my first senior year.
You managed 9 games, senior games that year?
Yeah, that was a good year. I enjoyed that because a lot of those games were starting on the bench. There's no interchange in those days. So I was able to, they just eased me into it, which was nice of them. And I played my first game. I suppose you want to know about that.
Yep.
At Waverley, AFL Park.
Yep.
And we played against Geelong. And I played on Scratcher Neil.
Okay.
I can't even remember his first name. We all called him Scratcher.
So when you
And I
come
was on the
on,
wing.
with interchange back then, you would come on, but you would only get like a quarter or something, wouldn't you?
No, there was no interchange. So you only got on when someone came off and they
okay.
didn't come back on. So that was it. It was 19th and 20th man.
Yeah, okay.
So my first game I started on the ground and I played the whole game on the wing.
Yeah, okay.
So the 19th and 20th men were only used if someone got seriously injured and couldn't continue,
Yeah.
or someone was playing poorly and the coach decided, no, he's got to come off and
they don't come back on.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
I never knew that either.
Surprisingly, I don't know why I didn't know that.
you blokes are young.
And to
Well,
what?
years before that, there was only a 19th man,
So how long? What year did they change that?
78.
And then that went to what? 3 or 4 on the bench.
No, still 2 on the bench.
Two on the
many
bench.
Years. Yeah, I don't know when the 3 on the bench came in.
Yeah.
But I think it was many years later.
And was that then a rotational bench?
It could have been, but it wasn't used like it's used these days.
Okay.
It was hardly ever used. Like when I was at Melbourne, I spent one game on the bench the whole game.
Yeah, right.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, I could
Interchange.
actually. Yeah.
And I spent the whole game on the bench.
Yeah.
I wasn't very happy. Ron Barassi was coaching Melbourne, and I wasn't happy that day.
I bet.
Anyway.
Who was your coach back then?
So Bill Stevens 74, Ray Jordan 75 in the reserves and the thirds. He coached both. He coached the reserves and the thirds. So
okay.
he'd coach the reserves and then hop in his car and go to the thirds at the other ground. And Barassi was coaching the seniors. So Barassi was my coach for from 76 when I was first on the list right through to 1980. So those 5 years.
Yeah, okay.
So then Malcolm Blight took over. He only lasted half a year. Barry Cable came over, and Cable coached the following 2 years, and then they let me go to Melbourne, and I was coached at Melbourne by Barassi again for 2 years.
Yeah, okay. So your first game, how did you actually go? How many kicks did you get?
I went okay. Have you got it?
No.
Now we can lie because you haven't got the stats.
Yeah. I didn't get a lot of the ball. I think maybe it might have had 10 kicks and 5 handballs, something like that. I don't think I got a lot of the ball, but I played okay.
I was lucky to get 10 kicks, 5 handballs for half a season.
Oh,
to get in the first game.
Untrue, I've seen you play well. But we lost. And the thing I remember about that is having a fairly serious, being part of a fairly serious meeting the following morning at Sunday morning training.
Yeah,
I didn't mention that before. Sunday morning training was a highlight. Not that we did much training. We just sort of ran a few laps and had a game of soccer or something like that. And then there was a few beers afterwards, and you'd sit in the coach's room, watch World of Sport.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a bit of fun just to get the guys together. But we had a serious meeting after that first game I played against Geelong, and we lost. And the crazy thing about that meeting was I remember Crackers Keenan. No, he was there then. Yeah, he was there. Crackers was there in 76. And he was talking about Rudy Webster, I think his name was. He was a West Indian fellow who was a bit of a psych guy.
Yeah.
Some of the players went to see him and, sit down, and he'd talk you through it and, give you, mental health support with your game. And Crackers, I remember him scratching his head and saying, I don't know why I didn't play well, because Rudy said I was going to play well this week, and I don't know what went wrong. As if Rudy had anything to do with his actual game.
Yeah, that's right.
But Crackers was a character. He was good fun.
Yeah. So 77 was the big year.
Well, I'll tell you one story about 76 before we get on to 77. Because I remember one game, I don't remember many of the games I played, but there was one game that was significant, not particularly in my career, but in North's year that year. We were playing Essendon at Arden Street at home.
Yeah.
And at half-time, we must have been, 20, 30 points down, because Barassi just went berserk. And he said, right, you and you, I can't remember the 2 players who he took off. Remember, there's no interchange.
Yeah.
So he took 2 players off, and John Douglas and I were on the bench. And I went onto the wing, and Johnny Douglas played centre forward, I'm pretty sure. And we played the third quarter, and halfway through the third quarter, Ross Henshaw did his collarbone and couldn't stay on.
Yeah.
not even stand in the forward pocket, and they took him off. So we're down to 17 men with a quarter and a half to go. And I think at three-quarter time we'd got back into it because there was a strong wind going down our way in the third quarter, and we were maybe 10 or 12 points down, something like that. So we're kicking against the breeze in the last quarter, and we're behind, and we've got 17 men. And we got up and won.
Oh, really?
And I had a good quarter. I might have had 4 or 5 kicks or something, and I remember kicking one long down against the wind into the forward line. John Burns, not John Burns from Wangaratta, the John Burns from Warrnambool took a mark and kicked a goal, and I got a few other touches. So that was probably my first real feeling of being part of a winning side for North and helping North win the game. So that was significant. And then, I got dropped. They had a pretty strong side, and I finished up playing in the reserves finals, and we lost to Collingwood in the reserves grand final that year. Yeah. So the other significant thing that happened was in the summer, over the summer, I don't know whose idea it was, but Ron Joseph said, we're going to give you a membership at a city gym. It was called the Oasis Gym.
Okay. And
I had a personal trainer, which was pretty rare in those days. I used to go in there maybe 4 times a week, because I was pretty skinny. I was, 78 kilos, ringing wet sort of thing. And I built myself up. I only put about 3 or 4 kilos on because my playing weight was around about 82.
Yeah.
Most of my career after that.
How much of that weight was in your hair back then?
There was a bit of hair there. It wasn't a mullet, though. It was not a mullet. You haven't got a photo of it.
We'll find one.
I'm pretty sure you couldn't consider it a mullet, but I had a fair bit of hair.
It was pretty impressive.
Anyway...
so you got stuck into the gym?
So I got stuck into the gym, and that was the difference between the two. I got confidence.
Yeah.
You go out and you play footy and you don't fear anything. I was more scared when I was watching my son play footy rather than when I played footy.
Yeah.
At that age, you're indestructible. And but I had the strength to back it up then, and I still wasn't one of the stronger players in the league or anything, but I just felt more confident within myself.
It's a common conversation, isn't it? That the guys that have had a career talk about their fitness and the effort and what difference it made once they got that extra fitness or strength, didn't it? And a lot of them go back and say, I wish I had done that earlier.
Yeah, a lot of them.
But you did it at a good time.
Yes, it was perfect timing.
Yeah. Some people's last 2 years of a 10-year career and wish they had done it earlier. But
how hard were the pre-seasons back then?
Very hard. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And the thing that is crazy when you look back on it is you might do 10 200s or 10 400s with, I think they did a 3-to-1 rest ratio, that sort of stuff. That was still, a little bit of science in it. And they hired pretty smart PE guys to take the pre-season, the fitness work.
Yeah.
So they weren't stupid about it. But you couldn't have a drink. You weren't allowed to have a drink in that section. Like you might do your 10 200s or your 10 400s, and at the end of it, you'd be allowed to have a drink. It's just crazy when you think back on it.
What's the science behind that?
Yeah, there's not much science behind it.
Yeah.
Now it's all about hydration, which is sensible, but very different thinking in those days.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure if the PE guys had come to Barras and said, look, they need to have a drink during those phases, he'd say, no, test them, push them.
Really?
I'm pretty sure he would have been against it.
Yeah.
Because it was a mental issue as far as he was concerned. You had to force yourself to do extra.
Yeah.
Which had its merits in some ways, I suppose, but he wouldn't do it these days.
Yeah. So he was hard pre-season, just
He was a hard man.
Yeah. How many times did he spit on you?
I don't remember him ever doing that.
stood at the back.
There was a reason. Yeah. I stood behind someone all the time.
Yeah.
I hid from him. One night at training, I remember during the finals, Brent Croswell, who I don't know if you remember him, but he was a real character.
Yeah.
And we'd do circle work, of course.
Yeah.
As you did in those days. And he was running beside me one day, and we're running around, and he said, come with me, come on. Let's just stick to his back, make sure he's back to us all the time. So Barras would be in the middle, circling around, and he would run hard to make sure that he was at Barras's back.
Didn't get seen.
Didn't get seen. He was a sneak, but he was a very good footballer.
Yes. All right, so it got serious in 77.
Yes.
It got really serious. 21 games you polled in. You played in 77. Yeah. 21 games, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and there was one player who played in every game that year. There were 27 games. Do you know who that was? That's a good trivia question for someone out there.
I did. I read
because I'm pretty sure it's still the record.
It is still the record. the only team to play 27 matches in a VFL AFL season, which is a record that still stands and will not be broken.
So Collingwood doesn't hold that record because they had a week off.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's only North Melbourne.
Yeah.
And it's Johnny Casson. You knew that, didn't you?
I did. I read it yesterday. I forgot it. Sorry.
Yeah, it was John Casson who was second rover to Cabes in those days, and he was the only player to play every game. So he holds that record.
Yeah.
And will probably forever.
So he can't be broken now, Ben, because...
No draw.
2016, I think they changed the rules.
No replay. That's right.
No replay, so they've got to play it out. So that record will stand forever unless they change the rule again. So, but yeah.
So you obviously had a good start to the season because you played a lot of games.
I played a group of games. I'm not sure how many, maybe 3 or 4 early games.
Yep.
And because I missed, what did I miss? I missed 6 games.
You missed 6, yep.
But I remember the game against Richmond. I played on Jeff Rains at the MCG. We were beaten. He was playing well. I was playing poorly. And I got the message about halfway through the last quarter to go off. And Ron House who was the head of the trainers. He came across and walked around the boundary line with me. So I went off the far side. In those days, you just went off closest you could and walked around the boundary line.
Yep.
Now, our rooms were at the punt road through the goals. So you'd run out through a race behind the goals and onto the ground. So I'm walking around and I get to the gate. And I said, Ron, I think I'll go in and have a shower, an early shower. And he says, oh, okay. You know, he looked a bit scared. So he kept walking. I went in the race. Now, there was a reason. My 21st birthday party was that night. And I thought, oh, well, I'm off the ground. I can't go back on. I'll just have a quick shower. And, of course, you know what happened. We lose the game. The team comes in. Barassi walks in. Here am I, fully clothed. Now, to this day, I cannot explain my thinking. What a ridiculous thing to do.
Yes.
And, of course, I got hauled over the coals.
Yeah.
Stan Els was there. Stan had been introduced to the players that morning at our team meeting. He'd just secured his clearance from Melbourne. They'd held off and finally cleared him, and he was announced as a player to be playing the following week, probably straight in the seniors. And guess what? I was out.
Yep.
And I was out for, I reckon, the next 4 or 5 games.
Yeah.
And I played well, like you can understand. Jumped in the car, had a great time at my party at Wodonga and with all my mates. And
we hope so.
Yeah, I hope it was worth it.
And that was the end of my senior games for a few weeks. I'm not sure how many, I maybe missed 4 or 5, something like that. But I got back in and they said to me, which I thought was very clever, they said, we're going to bring you back in and we're going to play you for 4 games. Regardless of how you play, we're going to play you for the next 4 weeks. And I thought that was, when I look back on it now, it didn't mean that much to me then. I said, oh, that's nice. But when I look back on it then, what a clever thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, to give me the confidence or show that they had confidence in me.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter how I went. And as it turned out, I started playing really good footy.
Relax and not stress that you might only get that one game.
I wasn't playing for my spot. I was just playing.
Yeah. Pressure's off a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. So I thought that was really clever.
It makes all the difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How did you go in the home and away? Where did you finish on the ladder? I haven't got that.
I think we finished 3rd. I think Collingwood finished top, then Hawthorn, then North, then I think Richmond and South Melbourne. Now, South Melbourne, I think they beat us in the last home and away round to sneak into the 5, and they played Richmond, and Richmond beat them in the elimination. So we played Hawthorn in the qualifying and got done.
Got smacked by 38 points.
Smacked, yeah.
Like, who was playing for Hawthorn back in those days, Ben? Do you know?
No. You're a Hawthorn man.
Lee Matthews.
Oh, God.
Michael Tuck.
Tucky was playing, yeah.
Peter Knights back then.
Peter Knights was playing, yeah. All those guys.
Quality.
I know the names, but I didn't know that.
Halloran, Terry Moore. Was it Terry Moore, fullback? His first name. But he was a very good fullback. Stuart Strott was on the wing. John Hendry.
Yeah.
They had some good players.
They had some good football.
But you got smacked, but you got a second chance.
Yeah, and I reckon the fact that we got smacked, they changed their thinking because Ron was he was bringing new things into the game, and I credit him as the person who started the tag because Kevin Bartlett was a great player for many years, as you know, played over 400, and he was killing them in those days. And every time we played Richmond, Ron would bring in Alan Jarrett. Now, Alan Jarrett's a Moyhu boy and played a number of games for North, but then went to Melbourne and had a fantastic career at Melbourne as a back flanker. And Ron used to get him to tag Barry Cable in the circle work. Yep. So our job was to get the ball to Barry. Alan's job was to stop him getting it or using it properly. So he taught him how to tag, and Alan Jarrett would tag Kevin Bartlett.
Yeah, okay.
And there was a couple of other sort of negative things that we used to do to try and negate the opposition. And then we got thumped in the qualifying final by Hawthorn, and he threw all that out the window. Said, we're just going to play attacking football, which we did. And we went on and we beat Richmond in the first semi.
By 47 points.
Then we beat Hawthorn in the prelim. And then, of course, we played the draw in the replay.
So they got smacked by Hawthorn in the qualifying, played them in the prelim, and smacked them by 67 points.
Ooh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Like massive turnaround.
Had a great game that day. But my claim to fame during that final series is I played in a number of future AFL coaches. So when we played Richmond, Mick Malthouse was playing centre.
Oh, really?
And I played on Mick Malthouse.
Yeah.
When we played Hawthorn, I played on Rodney Eade, who was playing centre in those days.
Yeah.
Because Terry Wallace didn't come in till the following year.
Yeah.
So you're in that around that time you were playing in the centre.
I was in the centre.
You're pretty much predominantly wing before that, weren't you?
I played a few games in those lead-up games in 76 on the wing.
Yep, okay.
But my games in the reserves and the thirds in the previous years, in 74, 75, I was always centre. I played centre at Wodonga.
Okay.
That was my favourite position.
Yep.
I played centre for my school footy.
Yep.
I classed myself as a centre player.
Yep.
And I learnt the trade as a centre player at an early age in the juniors. And, I reckon I could read the play well. That was one of my strengths, I think.
Yep. So 77, where'd you start off in that season? In
the centre. I reckon I played every game in the centre.
Yeah, nice.
When I played, I was in the centre. Yeah.
Wow, you would have been amongst all the big names then.
Huge names.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Jeff Range was probably one of the best players.
Yeah.
And there was a guy at St Kilda who was a very good player, Burns. Can't think of his surname, I'm sorry, but he was a very good player.
Was there anyone you didn't want to have to come up against?
In any year?
Let's
Jimmy
start.
Buckley
we'll start in 77. We'll stick with 77.
Well, Jeff Rains, he was a hard running player, and he was effective with his kicks. He has a long raking kick, and we always had a pretty good tussle. But I can't remember ever beating him. Like properly.
Yeah, was there?
We might have halved it every now and again. But
was there someone you tried to avoid because you thought you were going to get whacked? Because it was a bit different back then.
Oh, there's a lot of players that you watched carefully.
Yeah.
I played on Lee Matthews a few times.
Yeah.
He wasn't scared to whack anyone.
No.
Bit nervous.
Whenever the team wasn't going well, this is Hawthorn I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Or he wasn't going well.
Yep.
That's what he'd do.
Yep.
You know, I've spoken at a lot of sportsmen's nights, and I don't mind stating this again to the people listening.
Yep.
That if I was asked who the best player I've ever saw, I'd say Lee Matthews.
Yep.
He was a brilliant footballer.
Yep.
Absolutely brilliant. And I played with, my teammates, Keith Gregg, brilliant footballer, Wayne Schimmel, different types of footballer. Lee Matthews had everything.
Yeah.
He was a great rover, then he went to full forward and became a great full forward at his height.
Yeah.
Tree trunk legs, strong as an ox. If I ever asked who's the dirtiest player I've ever seen, Lee Matthews.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
He takes both.
Yeah.
Because I've seen him knock players out behind the play. I know he's come out and told, the public that he regrets some of the things he did.
Yep.
And I'm not talking about the Neville Bruns incident where he was deregistered. I've seen other incidents where he's done pretty ordinary things on the field, but for the benefit of the side.
Yeah.
So the Hawthorn people would love him.
Yeah.
Like he knocked out Keith Gregg in the 76 grand final and got 4 weeks for it.
Yep.
He'd get a lot more now because when you get reported in the grand final, I think it doubles up or something.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing. And I think if he was honest, he would say that he's disappointed that he did those things.
Yeah.
When I was at Melbourne, I saw him knock out a couple of blokes.
Yeah.
Just unnecessary stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Just in frustration, maybe. He's getting towards the end of his career, that sort of thing. But he was I was going to say a tough man, but that's not tough. I see it differently.
Yeah.
I'd never hit anyone on a footy field. I don't remember. I might have accidentally hit someone, but I never did anything deliberately like that because I was a ball player. And people like Keith Gregg, he got battered as a footballer because he was so good. But he never, ever took his eyes off the ball.
Yeah.
Wayne Schimmel was the same. Never saw him hit anyone. just eyes on the ball, hard at it. That's toughness.
Yeah.
Paul Kelly for Sydney, another player I've got a great admiration for.
Yep.
Brilliant players.
Yeah, nice.
Anyway.
So, pretty good footballers before we head into the grand final.
Yeah.
77 Brownlow. Some massive names in there
Yeah.
back then. Who won the 77 Brownlow?
That would be Teasdale.
From South Melbourne, he did.
Graham Teasdale.
Yeah.
Who wore the worst jacket that night. I think it was like a velour green thing or something. I can't remember what colour it was. Oh my God, the fashion in those days was shocking. But he was a great footballer.
He won it on 59 votes.
I think he went from Richmond to South Melbourne.
Oh, did he?
I think so.
He was certainly at South Melbourne then.
Yeah, well, that's my claim to fame. So people say, how many Brownlow votes do you get? I think I got 5, but I got 4 that year. But of course, both umpires gave votes. So I really only effectively got 2 Brownlow votes in my life.
Well, I couldn't find that. I looked that up, but I couldn't find it. So
yeah, both. That was the 2 umpire system, which was only new that year, maybe 77. I'm not sure. Maybe 76.
Yeah, okay.
2 umpires, and they both gave votes in 77. Must have been 77 because I think that's the most number of votes a Brownlow medalist has got.
59.
I think maybe the following year they went back to just a one set of votes that the 2 umpires agreed on. So
okay.
I think that's how it worked.
Number 2 in that Brownlow was Kevin Bartlett.
Yeah, he finished second to Keith Greig, I think, both years. Keith won 73, 74. Richmond were filthy.
Yeah.
So, he was terribly unlucky not to win a Brownlow. Great footballer. Then, did Lee Matthews poll a lot of Brownlow votes?
That year, he came equal 4th.
Oh, there you go.
With 34 votes.
I was going to say, maybe he didn't get too many.
Yeah. Yeah. So Billy Picken come
for old Billy.
3rd with 41 votes.
That's a bit scary. Billy was 1 month younger than me.
Really?
He passed away.
No, I didn't hear. Oh, I might have heard that. Yeah.
Just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so he was born the same year as me.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
How did he pass away?
I believe he had a heart issue. I'm not absolutely sure of that, but it wasn't well documented.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So then you had number 4 was Bruce Dool. What a household name that is.
Played on Bruce a few times.
Did you?
Yeah.
What was he like?
He's the loveliest fellow. I remember having a beer with him at the Clyde in Carlton once.
Yeah.
He used to drink there, and not that we drank much, but I just ran into him there and said hello, and he remembered me. And
Really?
we had a quiet chat, very quietly spoken.
Is he? Yeah, okay.
But, another player who never took his eyes off the ball.
Yeah.
Beautiful anticipation. I think that was the key to his game.
Yeah, okay.
Just knew where to be at the right place.
Then you had Len Thompson. He was equal 4th.
Yeah.
So
well, he won a Brownlow in 72, of course.
Yeah, another Collingwood footballer.
Yeah.
Then Lee Matthews. Then Gary Dempsey from North comes 7th. So,
he was playing at Footscray then.
you sure?
77.
Yeah.
Yep.
I better check the computer.
Yeah, he came to North in 79.
Yeah, okay.
So
it said he was North Melbourne. So
he won a flag. Well, he won a Brownlow in 71, maybe.
Yeah. What about David Dench? He was at North, wasn't he?
Oh yes, he's a North player.
So he came 9th.
Wow.
And number 10
He's
was...
a fullback, remember? You don't see fullbacks getting
No, that's right. And then Simon Madden. But another household name.
Yeah, so that's all ruckman and midfielders. And David Dench is sitting in there as a fullback. That's how good he was.
Yeah, that's old, isn't it?
And
he was a brilliant fullback.
I think at number 6, who was uneligible, was Jeff Saru or something from St Kilda.
Jeff Saru.
Yeah. He had 30 votes, but he's ineligible.
I could see you've got a story.
I know his elbow well.
Yeah.
Well,
he was a good player.
He was ineligible, so I'm assuming he whacked someone.
He was, he took shortcuts.
Okay.
So where are we at? We're at 77 grand final.
Yeah, we've just won the prelim.
Yep.
And we're heading in.
Now that prelim's famous for Barry Cable. I have to pull you up there because he had 10 kicks that day.
Yeah.
Got best on ground, but mainly because he had 22 handballs.
Oh, really?
10 kicks and 22 handballs.
Didn't have many handballs back in those days.
Oh, he was a handballer.
Yeah.
And I reckon that was my best game of the whole final series, the prelim.
Yeah,
I think I was named 3rd best for North. I think it was Cable, Dench. Dench kept Hudson goalless.
Yeah.
And I think I was named 3rd best. I had a good game.
So Peter Hudson.
Peter
Hudson. Yeah. Unbelievable full forward.
One of the worst looking kicks of all time, but they went through.
They went through.
They used to kick these flat punts. Weirdest kicking style.
So then we headed into the grand final.
Mm-hmm.
The big week.
Were you nervous? No parade or anything like that?
Yeah, that was the first year.
Was the first year it was televised? First ever year?
Yeah, 77 was the first year of the parade,
Yeah.
and the first year of the live telecast on TV.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a bit of a story there, which is I find amusing. You mightn't, but I was in my 4th year at uni, and I was doing part time,
Yep.
doing my dip ed, and I needed to get a bit of extra funds, so I took a job on. I found this job on the board at uni. This fellow who's a bookseller wanted someone to get rid of his old books, his old stock, to the schools. So I went down and saw him. He worked out of top of Lonsdale Street. So I'd been working for him for most of the year, or probably since May onwards or so. And I just go in when I wanted to. He lent me his car. He had a big old Ford station wagon, and I'd put these boxes of books in the back and ring schools and say I'm coming, and off I'd go all over Melbourne. I went down to Geelong as well at times. Just go in, drag the books in the library, and I'd come in. And he said, my boss said, you can have a third of everything you sold. So I was out there selling books left, right and centre and getting a third of everything I brought in. He didn't know who I was. So this particular day on the Friday before the grand final, I said, I've just got to duck out. Can I have a couple of hours for lunch? Yeah, no worries, off you go. So I put my good gear on in the car and just walked around at the top of Spring Street, hopped in the car with Johnny Casson and did the thing down Burke Street with the parade, went back, got into my old gear and went back to work.
How was that?
Casual.
That's weird, isn't
A
it?
bit casual, but
It is.
That's what I did.
how was it? Was it exciting to do a parade? Was there many people there?
Oh,
or?
yeah, it was lines stacked
Yeah.
with people there. And, it was good fun. They were throwing the streamers over you and saying hello. And,
Yeah.
it was just very pleasant. And we finished up in front of Myers there, and they took us into Myers and upstairs into this room where they had some party pies and some soft drinks and stuff. And Collingwood were over one side, and we were on the other side. And I was standing beside Barras, and I remember he gave me a knock in the ribs. He said, "Oh, who do you think looks better?" Because we had a outfit. We had a jacket and a North shirt, I think. No, wasn't it? It was just a dress shirt.
Yeah.
So we had rules to dress by. They were all in their tracksuits.
Oh,
Most
okay.
of them. They were just, they weren't in any sort of particular Collingwood gear. They had Collingwood tracksuits on if they had tracksuits on, or something else, shorts, whatever. So there was no consistency to what they wore. Brass was pretty happy about that. He thought that gave us an edge.
Well, you could tell why if you actually go back and watch the grand final and you see the coaches in the little coaching veranda that they used to have.
Veranda.
Well, Tommy Havey always wore the little T-shirt to show off his muscles.
Tommy Havey was the coach of Collingwood, so he had the short, tight T-shirt on, and Barassi had a suit. Well, no tie, but like with the big flared collar and everything out.
I think he had a green shirt on or something ridiculous.
It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, very different. Just what you think was appropriate at the time, but it was never a big issue for Tom. He had other concerns. But
So going into the morning of the grand final, nervous?
Yeah.
Just like any other game, or?
I used to get nervous. There's no doubt about that. But I just couldn't wait for the first bounce. Once the ball was bounced, there was no nerves. Yeah. That's how I always found it. So, it was nervy. We had a team meeting every Saturday morning in each final. And so we met at the old Melbourne Motor Inn, the top of Flemington. It's now an accommodation for RMIT students or something. But the old Melbourne Motor Inn, we went to a room there. I think they might have been our sponsor or something at the time. And we'd sit down and have a chat about the game, and then Ron had put this video on that we saw time and time again. I think it was called Any Given Sunday. It's about gridiron.
Yeah, they remade
and the Green Bay Packers. Yeah. And what's the famous coach of the Green Bay Packers? Ron loved this fellow. I bet you there's a lot of people at home who know it. I might think of it before the end of our chat.
I can't remember.
But he's famous, and I cannot remember his name. But it was a great little video. It went for about 10 or 15 minutes.
Yep.
It was a very interesting, all about their success, the Green Bay Packers. It was an Italian name.
Bart Starr?
No.
No.
No, go back. Green Bay Packers. Maybe it wasn't the Green Bay Packers. Head coach Bart Starr.
Was it the Packers or the Dolphins?
No.
Type in the movie.
Oh, it might have been the Miami Dolphins, was it?
Type in the movie.
I reckon it was the Miami Dolphins.
Any given Sunday. You'll find it. So that was your pre-game.
So that was our pre-game. We discussed tactics. Len Thompson was very dominant, and one of the tactics I remember was Phil Baker was to start in the centre. And in those days, you could have any number of players up at the ruck.
Yep.
So Len Thompson would be on this side. Crackers, I think, was on the other side, and Phil Baker would start sort of at an angle, and his job was to come in and belt it as far as he could, if he could get onto it, forward.
Yep.
So that lasted for about a quarter and a half, and Ron decided that wasn't working, because Len was a very good tap ruckman. Crackers was a good ruckman, but his strength wasn't the centre bounce.
Yep.
Whereas Mick Nolan was the opposite. Mick Nolan was, a palmer of the ball. Crackers would hit it hard, but Mick wasn't playing that day. He was in the reserves, but he was a brilliant tap ruckman, and Barry Cable raves about how good he was and how he used to put the ball on his chest so often. Yep. So we had our tactics, and then we'd head off, and everyone would make their own way to the ground. We all had tickets and for the car park, and during the week, it's always a busy week because everyone under the sun wanted grand final tickets.
Mm.
So there were people coming out of the woodwork saying they're best friends with my father and mother, and can you get me a ticket? But I just looked after family pretty much, and we used to get stacks of tickets for them. So that all worked out pretty well.
Yep.
You should have been able to get stacks. It was 108,000 people there.
108,000, is that right?
108, 224 that game.
Wow.
That's huge. What's it like playing in when there's 108,000 fans?
Well, you can't afford to think about it, really.
Yeah.
You run out in the ground and you look around, you have a bit of a look, and this is impressive.
Yeah.
And then the ball bounced, and your mind is on the football.
Yeah.
You can't afford to be. I don't know how they do it these days. It's a very different mindset these days because there's so many cameras, and they're used to watching themselves so often. We never saw ourselves play that much. There wasn't. There was videos, but they were only very new.
Yeah.
VCRs and that, and the machines. Yeah. We didn't do a lot of watching the previous week's game. We never looked at that. We'd see a bit on World of Sport. Oh, that's good. Yeah, there I am. Yeah. That was about it. You never saw yourself play very much.
Was that the biggest crowd you ever played in?
Oh, it'd have to be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think there was a big crowd at the Cup to Katandra Grand Final.
Oh, yeah. I believe...
that'd have to be the biggest.
I believe the prelim had like 68,000 people there. So it's a big difference from
at
a prelim.
Waverley,
compared to that granny.
Okay.
So it's pretty extraordinary.
But as I say, I can't remember sort of being overawed by it. I just thought, this is pretty good.
This is what it is.
And see if I can get some kicks.
So how'd you go first quarter?
First quarter, I went okay. David Dench kicked the first goal of the game, came sprinting through the wing and took a bounce and kicked a goal.
Yeah.
And that was the nature of his game. He was an attacking fullback, and his man would have let him down there, which would have helped. But, I remember he kicked the first goal, and I'm pretty sure it was 4 goals each at quarter time. I think. I remember John Byrne had a ball on the forward flank, and I ran into the pocket on lead, and he kicked it over to him, and the kick went wide, and the siren went. If the kick had, remember if he kicked it well, and I'd marked it, I would have had a kick at goal after the siren. It would have been a difficult shot, but then we didn't kick a goal in the second and third quarters.
Second and third quarters.
Yeah. So I think at 3/4 time we might have been 4-15 or something. Vince Lombardi.
Oh, yeah.
Was the name of the gridiron coach. Vince Lombardi. There, I knew it'd come
back into it.
So I'll chuck that one in there.
I'm thinking, I don't remember him playing.
No.
But,
where's this going?
But Vince Lombardi, so maybe I've got the wrong team, Green Bay Packers. But
4 goals, 15.
4-15, and they were 8 or 9 something?
9-12?
9-12.
8, I can't even see them.
They were 9-12.
They were 9-12. So they finished 10-16, and we finished 22. Yeah. Arnold Breeders kicked 7 points.
I was going to say you won by points.
What was his name? Breeders.
Arnold Breeders, yeah.
Yeah, kicked 7 points.
Yeah.
What did they kick? 1 goal, 4 in the last quarter.
Yeah, and the 1 goal, of course, was Twiggy Dunn right at the end of the last quarter. So
which put the draw. He kicked it from 20 metres out, and he torped it from 20 out, just launched it.
I reckon he kicked a couple of goals a day. He took a mark right on the point post and went back and torped it through. He just had this most magnificent torpedo. Never got him wrong.
It's bizarre.
Doug Wade was a bit like that. Doug Wade didn't train much because he was right at the end of his career in 75. And he used to just go out there and we'd be training hard down one end and he was at the other end with half a dozen balls and someone behind the goals fetching the balls for him. No netting in those days.
Yeah.
And he'd just kick from, not very far out, 30 metres at the most, and just did these low barrels.
Really?
That's how he kicked them.
I watched the game.
He kicked over 1,000 goals, of course.
I watched the game last night and I'm like, this dude's kicking to draw the game 20 metres out and he's kicking a barrel.
The one thing that goes wrong.
Did you say you watched the game last night?
Yeah.
Oh, you mad thing.
Yeah, I had to know how you went.
But
I got to see your mullet running around the ground.
It wasn't a mullet. It was just a normal long haircut.
This is too good.
So, what was I saying?
Mullet. Is this your school teacher
yeah,
coming out?
So we were 4 goals.
Don't like mullets.
But Ron Barassi took Malcolm Blight off at three-quarter time. Blighty was having a quiet day.
Yeah.
He took Blighty off and brought on Bill Nettlefold, who's still good friends of mine.
Yeah.
He's a lovely fellow, Bill. He lives down at Blairgowrie, and Bill had a number of kicks. He'd come from Richmond to us previously, and he'd been in the game for a while, and he had a number of kicks that quarter. He put Darryl Sutton to centre forward from centre back, and Stephen Ick to centre back.
Oh, yeah.
So they swatched those two. And
he
Darryl
had
took
the
a mark
long
early and kicked a goal.
Yeah.
So that worked straight away and just got us going. And away we went. And, we got a goal up, of course. And
yeah, well, you were 27 points down at three-quarter time.
Incredible.
Mm.
Yeah, so it was a good comeback.
And didn't look like kicking a goal.
No.
Like that second and third quarter. Didn't even look like it.
No, so that goal of Darryl's would have been the fifth goal that we'd kicked of the day.
Yeah.
Our first goal in the last quarter.
Yeah.
And we just got on a roll.
Mm.
I remember walking out to the centre after we'd broken up at three-quarter time, and Brass had given us a bit of a rev up, and out we went. And Crackers, I'm walking beside Crackers because he was the ruckman. We were going the same direction to the centre. He said, "Come on, you guys, we can do this. Do it for me."
Do it for me.
Do it for me. And I thought, what the hell? Do it for me. Okay, see what I can do.
You two can keep talking. I'm going to find the
Oh,
mullet.
you're going to find. You just got to look for the hair.
Oh, there's Crackers. But yeah, the other thing I remember well about that game, especially afterwards.
Sorry.
Oh, there you go. Was Stan Magro had played quite well. He was my direct opponent. And the ball was sort of halfway between full forward and centre forward in their forward line late in the game. And I had my hands on the ball. I was on the ground with my hands on the ball trying to get it out. And I remember Stan was sort of half on his feet and he just ripped the ball off me and turned around on his left side and kicked. And yeah, we were a goal up at the time and he missed. He put it out in the full. So it would have been just outside the point post by a couple of feet. And when I think back on that, let's say if he'd kicked a point and then the kick out was marked by Billy Picken, who kicked it back in and Twiggy marks and kicks the goal to put him a point in front, I could have cost him a grand final.
Yeah.
But I remember that distinctly. I thought, oh, thank God he missed it.
Yeah.
And then the ball was kicked out. Billy Picken marked it, as I said. I was in that marking duel in front of him and he marked it over the top of me. And he kicked it back and Twiggy marked it, put it through for a goal. And there was probably another minute to go, maybe. It went into our forward line, came out through Andrew Ireland. I think Shane Bond got the ball. He'd come off the bench for Collingwood and was bouncing the ball around the wing when the siren went for a draw.
Wow.
What was the feeling at a draw?
I was standing sort of not far from where the ball was because I was running back to try and defend. And Wayne Richardson was nearby and I shook hands. And Barry Cable was there. And I said, well, what happens now? And he said, I don't know. And Wayne came over and shook hands and said, I'll see you next week. I thought, oh, okay, replay.
Yep.
And, it was pretty demoralising because you sort of build yourself up, not just for the grand final, but for the end of the season.
Yeah.
This is our last game. Put everything into it. Win, lose, or win. I was going to say draw.
Yeah.
Win or lose, we're finished for the year.
Yeah.
You don't anticipate playing a draw, of course. And
yeah.
But Barassi, I think, was brilliant that week.
Yeah, okay.
He handled it brilliantly. He took us into the rooms after the game, into the coaches' rooms, and he got all the partners in there too.
Yeah.
The wives and the girlfriends.
Yeah.
Which was, so they'd come in and he waited for them to get there, and then he got us all in there, so we were pretty packed. And he said to the girls and ladies, whatever, he said, just give me one more week. I just want you to give me one more week. And he pleaded to them to, help us out, and don't know why they would have done the right thing anyway.
Yeah.
And we had a very light week on the track.
Yeah, okay.
Sunday morning was very, just the normal Sunday morning was light anyway. Tuesday, I reckon we trained for about 3/4 an hour. Thursday, we trained for about half an hour.
Yep.
We just did swimming and stuff on the Monday night in gym. So we had a really light week. And another parade. The parade was done again. Yeah,
they did
we had
another
a second parade. And they played a game, I think Hawthorn played Richmond, the third and fourth sides that we'd played. They played a curtain raiser.
Yep.
The senior sides played a curtain raiser. I don't think Lee would have played, but who knows? I can't remember. They played a curtain raiser. And we'd heard that Collingwood had a really hard week. So Tommy Hafey is a fitness fanatic. He was the loveliest fella you could ever meet. But apparently he ran them hard and really, looking back on it, I'm sure he regrets it, because you're not going to improve your fitness base in the last week of the season anyway. And this is an extra week as well.
Yeah.
And we felt that we were going in there fresher, and I think that made a big difference.
I think it showed in that game too, in that replay. You sort of overrun them towards the end. So
yeah. And the scary thing, I've only watched it once since.
It's got to go the other way.
And I've only watched the game once since the escapes.
Oh, yeah. He was.
And I just had forgotten how close they got to us in the replay.
Okay.
Like I
they got within
Wayne
12
Gordon,
points.
12 points. They got within 2 goals in that last quarter, and they could easily have, snatched it. Phil Manasseh did the famous goal where he ran around.
Yeah.
And then Wayne Gordon kicked a long goal.
Yeah.
They got really close.
They looked like they were going to get you, to be honest. They had the momentum. And
kicked away. What did we win by? We kicked away towards the end, did we? I think we got the last 3, maybe.
You won it by 27 points.
Oh, right. So the same difference of at 3/4 time the previous week we were down.
Yeah.
How ironic.
It's a bit freaky, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's a pretty special year.
I can't find the mullet.
That's good. That's a good thing.
The video quality back then is so poor.
That's a good thing too.
Pretty.
If anyone listening, go back and watch the 1977 grand final. You'll see the mullet. Or the big mop, anyway. It looks like a big mop of hair.
Bit of relief and a lot of celebration.
Yes, we had a good night that night. They had the Southern Cross booked, and we went there. And I can remember really great feelings when we went back to the North Ground. They at about halfway through the night, maybe 9 or 10 o'clock, I can't remember exactly when, they hauled us out of the Southern Cross, just the players and some of the committee in that, and they had a bus there for us, and they drove us back to Arden Street. So there were thousands of people at Arden Street. Arden Street used to have nothing like it is now, of course, it's all new, but it used to have this huge undercover car park at the side of the ground on the corner. And there were stacks of people there, and they had a stage, and we were all presented to the people, and one at a time, and that was brilliant. And then we went over to the social club and were presented again, and there were old women crying their eyes out. Getting a bit choking now. It was very special.
It is. And how old were you then? Remind me.
21.
21.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he went and had his 21st birthday.
Just to put it into perspective again.
Yeah, it's crazy.
At the age of 21.
Well, it's the same as Steele. Steele Simon's had an amazing career. He's played a lot more games than I, but he played in that grand final in 2010.
Yeah.
I reckon he might have been 20. Maybe
it was
younger
his
than
second
me.
year, so I reckon he was 19.
Oh, yeah, 19 or 20.
19 or 20,
And he's played all that footy since, gone close a couple of times.
Yeah.
Had just a brilliant career.
Yeah.
I see Dave Mundy's announced his retirement too, another Bushies boy yesterday. He's going to finish at the end of the year.
End of season, yeah.
That's a shame.
He's probably, he and Steele are my 2 standouts from the Bushies days.
Yeah.
I didn't coach Steele. He was in the under-16s when I was at the Bushies, but Dave Mundy, he's played over 300 games, hardly missed a
lot of
game, and just been a brilliant player.
I thought he'd go another 2 years at least.
Did you?
He's 37.
36, I reckon. 35 or 6, yeah.
I reckon
he's getting on.
I reckon he's a superstar.
He is.
Did they do like a Norm Smith or anything back then? Like best on ground?
No, Norm Smith started in 79 when I think I won it. Wayne Harms won it.
Yeah.
And Wayne Harms is Norm Smith's great nephew or something. He's related, closely related.
Yeah. So they did the presentation on the ground?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So Alan Aylett, who ex-North Melbourne president, and he was president when North won their first flag in 75, he'd become the VFL president.
Yeah, okay.
And he was really, he'd have to be credited with introducing the national game. He was a big fan of broadening the game, and South Melbourne people probably won't like him much because he had a lot to do with South going to Sydney.
Yeah.
And started, just snowballed after that. He wasn't there in those later years when Fitzroy became the Brisbane Lions and all that sort of stuff. And now we've got a fully national game.
Yeah.
But he started the system, started the process way back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Did you get to hold the cup over your head?
I didn't. The reason being is that as we're running around doing our lap of honour, and now they take so long, and it's wonderful the way they do it now. I would have loved to have spent a lot more time out in the ground, but it wasn't to be. But my brother, who was, I was 21, so he was about 12, I was looking for him, and I got behind the players, sort of kept going, and I knew approximately where they were, and I was trying to get their attention because I wanted to pull him over the fence and take him around with me, and I never got to do that.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway, by the time I realised I wasn't going to find him, they were sort of almost to the goals at the other end, so I sprinted around, and someone gave me the cup just before we went into the room. So I held the cup just on the ground for about 20 seconds, I think.
Yeah, okay.
No big deal.
Took a swig out of it with the other 20 players.
I don't think there was anything in it at that stage.
Yeah.
I never drank out of it. But we had a good time. We had a good night that night. We finished up at Barry Cheatley's place. He lived in Mount Alexander Road in those days, and we did the all-nighter. And remember, that was the first and last time I've ever had a Big Mac. Got to be careful there. I can't put down a sponsor, can I?
There's no sponsor.
But, they brought some food in about 3 o'clock in the morning. We had the big time at Southern Cross and at the North Grounds. And then we went out to Lloyd Holyoake, who was a future president of the club. Sorry, he was the president then, and he lived out at Kangaroo Ground. I think it's called Kangaroo Ground, yeah. Bendigo's Kangaroo Flat. He lived at Kangaroo Ground, which is sort of northwest, I think, in the sticks. And we had a full day there and watched Bathurst and had a few drinks and went home, and Monday morning went back to work.
Really?
Kept selling books.
So it wasn't an all-weeker sort of thing like they do nowadays?
They had Courage Brewery was their sponsor in those days. And I remember on the Tuesday maybe they'd invited us out to the brewery, which was out in Broadmeadows area somewhere. And we had lunch there and they looked after us, and then just back to work. No, that was pretty much it.
Really?
Yeah.
Who got best on ground?
I think Len Thompson.
In the replay?
He played well in both games.
Who got best on ground the first game?
Len Thompson and Stan Magro, I think.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I read Xavier Tanner.
Well, a lot of people have suggested that, but if you check the papers, there was not
Where am I
one...
going to find a paper from 1977?
Well, I think my mother kept the cuttings and there was no paper that had me the best player. So let's wipe the slate clean right now.
Oh, I'm going to prove you wrong.
And I might have been, in some of the papers, I might have been in the third or fourth, and I played okay, but I was not named best.
I beg to differ.
Okay, well, if you can prove
I'm going to find it. So for those who are watching, I'm bringing it up on the big screen.
Oh, this is classic.
But look, I think I played okay, but Stan Magro played very well in the draw.
Yep.
I had a good first quarter and a good last quarter. I think I got about 10 touches in the last quarter.
Look at this. Look, who's number one there? Oh, Tanner.
Oh,
there
you go.
It's on Wikipedia, man. It must be true.
Wikipedia.
And if you go down...
Yeah, no, I haven't seen that before.
If we go down to the replay... who's number 2?
There you go.
Number 2, Xavier Tanner.
Who wrote that rubbish? I honestly have not seen that before.
He's very modest.
It's a bit too much.
He carved
Just take it. Take it for once.
It was interesting in the draw in 2010, they gave a Norm Smith for both games. Lenny Hayes got it for the draw, for Collingwood St Kilda, and then I'm pretty sure who got the second one. Don't know. I think it was a Collingwood player. One of
Dane Swan, wasn't it?
Dane Swan could have been, yeah.
Someone like that, I think. You actually had 8 kicks in the third quarter in the replay.
Okay.
You had 8 kicks to help extend the lead.
I think I've got a memory that I had the same stats in both games, maybe 17 and 7, something like that.
I didn't go that deep.
But that was weird, something weird.
Classic.
But that's interesting. I haven't seen that. What's that from?
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia is like the...
So type in 1977 Grand Final, VFL Grand Final.
Okay.
It can't be. We're going to say it can't be wrong.
It's not wrong. It's on the internet, mate. Can't be wrong.
Oh, dear.
Believe everything you see on the internet.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
I love it when you need or want to.
So we go back to work on the Monday.
Yeah.
And things just went back to normal?
Yeah,
or?
the guy I worked for had no idea who I was or what I did. So I wasn't going to tell him.
So you rocked back into work on Monday. And
I can remember going to Geelong that week.
What'd you do on the weekend?
Between the draw and the grand final, I definitely went to Geelong and tried to sell some books down there.
So you didn't...
That's a true story.
You didn't introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Xavier Tanner, the
I introduced
AFL
myself,
football,
but no one said
VFL
anything,
football.
so they weren't football followers, which was
Oh,
good.
really?
Probably the difference being that you'd recognise people now because you see them on the TV
Yeah,
every
that's
week.
right.
Very different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's completely different. It's
I
media all
can
the
remember
time now.
once getting pulled up in town in Melbourne by someone who asked for my autograph.
Yeah.
That happened once.
Yep.
But that would have been a North Melbourne supporter
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
knew the North players.
Yeah.
So very different in those
Different
days.
world, isn't it?
Totally different.
Yeah.
There were players who were instantly recognisable, like Malcolm Blight would have been known. You know,
Probably
I
in
wasn't
the,
known.
in the papers
Yeah,
every
they're
week
in the
too.
papers all
Photos,
the time, and they're
yeah.
great players. They win a Brownlow, that sort of thing. So, I feel sorry for them. They can't just go to a restaurant and have a meal like, superstar actors and all that sort of stuff.
Getting a
Their
hassle.
very personal life is gone.
The difference now is that they get paid a lot of money to do it. So it's sort of
Sure. So
it's
they-
sort of part of their role to a certain degree.
They do
so,
promote the game all the time,
yeah,
don't they, wherever they
sort
are.
of have to.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So what happened in 78?
78, I got married. That's what happened. Destroyed my career. Sorry, Maureen.
I was going to
My lovely
say,
wife.
are you still married or?
Yes, I'm married. Been married for 44 years.
Because you only played 6 games in
Yeah.
78.
So what happened was, married in January
Yep.
14th, and we went away for a couple of weeks to drove over to Adelaide and had our honeymoon over there,
Yeah.
and came back and started pre-season training and trained and played in the practice games and everything. And the Thursday before the first round, I can remember it to this very day, I was running past, I was doing some drill, and I was running past to get a handball from Arnold Brightus, and he handballed it, and it just went a little bit in front of me, and I stretched to grab it, and they reckon they heard the sound
Twang.
all around the ground, and my hamstring went.
Yeah.
And that's really the first soft tissue injury I ever had.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I smashed it. I tore it.
Yeah.
So that was me done for 5-6 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
Limped off the ground, and then people were sending me to all over the place to different people for this magic remedy for hamstrings.
Yeah.
I remember going to a guy in Balaclava Road in Caulfield. Can't remember his name. I won't say his name anyway. But he had me on, lying down on this bench, and I was hitting the ceiling. He was getting the thumbs in. And
Yeah.
this was the way you dealt with the hamstrings in those days. You made them bleed, I think the idea was, and then they mend better or something. I don't know. But anyway, I had ongoing hamstring problems from then on.
For the whole, like that season?
Yeah, so I was in and out, and I'd play a bit of reserves and then get back into the seniors for a couple of games and then do another injury.
Yeah.
So that was my footy career for the rest of my career, really. Just soft tissue injuries.
Yeah.
My knees held up well. I rolled ankles from time to time. I had calf injuries and groins and hamstrings.
Yeah.
I never did a quad, so that was good. So my
Yeah,
quads were
okay.
good. But, probably chicken legs, and they weren't quite right for that. But I never went back to the gym, to that personal trainer. I regret it to this day. I should have done one of those summers again, and just to build myself back up again, and it might have done the trick. But yeah, so I
Okay.
I sort of averaged over those next 4 years from 79 through to 83, about that. 82 probably, those 4 years. I averaged about 60 or 70 games.
79 you played 13,
Mm.
80 you played 18,
Cool.
81 14, 82 17.
Yep.
And then she sort of went down.
83 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened in 83?
I don't know what happened then. They must have changed their mind about me.
Different coach.
Well, we had Cabes arrived to take over after Malcolm
Yeah.
in 81. So he was there in 82. And then 83, they tried some new players, like Anthony Fury was a forward flanker, good player, good kid, a young guy. A few other young guys in there, and I think they just decided to take a different approach.
Yeah.
And I was playing good footy. I can remember being named emergency a number of times. I was playing good footy in the reserves. And then I think it was the third last round, I got my first game in the seniors for the year. There was an injury, and I came in, sat on the bench, and we played at Waverley against Collingwood. And Johnny Holt, another good footballer, had a poor first quarter, and Cabes decided, no, you're off. It was interchange, mind you, so it wasn't as if you were dragged or anything. You could come back on. But I got on at quarter time. I kicked 5 from a forward flank. So I thought I had a good day.
Yeah.
So the following week, I thought, oh, beauty, I'm going to get my 100th game. I was on the bench again at the start of the game. So I ran out at against Geelong, so that my first game was for North was against Geelong. My last game for North. That 100th game was my last game for North.
Yeah.
And I ran through my banner, Xavier Tanner, 100 games, congratulations. And walked off and sat on the bench. Got on and off a few times, played in the centre for a little while on Featherby, who was a huge, ball gatherer. He always got a lot of kicks, but I did okay on him. And then during the week, I pulled my groin, and I think there was only one more game at the end of the year, end of the season. And then they had a meeting with me in November when we all had our review meetings after a bit of a break. And John Dugdale was the secretary at North then, great player, great fellow. And he said, we want to offer you the captaincy of the reserves.
Oh, career ending.
Oh, really? Yeah, so I took that with a grain of salt. And he said, there is another option. Melbourne have shown some interest in you. Barassi was at Melbourne.
Yeah.
There was a lot of North players had gone from North to Melbourne with Barassi. And they would like to have a chat to you. So I had a chat to them, and they offered me a 3-year contract.
Yeah.
With a sign-on fee. So I thought, that's me. I'm there.
There's the brown paper bag. Got the brown paper bag.
Well, you're right, Simon. I'm happy to admit now that was a financial decision.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I was on a very poor contract. They were offering me bugger all money to be captain of the reserves. I would have loved to have stayed at North. I loved North. Still do.
Yeah.
But I thought, I've got to do this for my family.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I went. I enjoyed it there. We played in the reserves grand final. We won the flag in 84 in the reserves. I only played 9 games, and I was past my best by then.
Yeah. So how old were you then?
I was 28, 29. I was at North.
Okay. And so you managed 9 games that first year in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And then
don't remember a lot about my time there in the seniors. I remember one game I played against Hawthorn, and I was played for a short time on Dermot Brereton, centre half back, and then I was on Malaxos.
Really?
Steve Malaxos.
Yeah.
And I thought I was doing okay, but the message come out, you're off. And I can remember running and chasing someone down the wing as I was heading to the boundary line to go through the interchange, and getting another kick and belting it into the forward line with a big torp, and then walking off the ground. I was pretty pissed off, excuse me, about that, because I thought I was going okay. I thought, here's my chance to prove myself. And I got back on a few times, I think. But I didn't have a great career at Melbourne. Yeah, so but I enjoyed my time there.
Only managed two games in 85.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So did you get injured that year, or they just didn't really want to play?
I would have had a few little injuries from time to time, but they had a very good thirds side from the previous years, like Chris Conley, Michael O'Sullivan, those sort of guys. Rusty from Seymour, Mick's friend. I've forgotten his surname. That's silly. Anyway, some good young players, and they were obviously taking a youth approach, and I was happy playing in the reserves and enjoying my footy. Yeah. And happy to say goodbye. So I didn't actually say goodbye because they kept me there for the pre-season, and John Barassi finished up, and John Northey was appointed coach. Oh, okay. So I did a full pre-season thinking, this is good. I'll get a new chance, a new coach to have a look at me. And I put in pretty hard. And the week before the first round, I got called into the secretary's office. Ray Manley, who's a lovely fellow too. And he said, I'm sorry, Zay, but he gave me what's called the DCM. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, don't come Monday.
Don't come Monday. So I had another year to play out on my contract, and I didn't know what to do then. They said, we want you to play for Port Melbourne. They're going to take up your contract. And I said, don't really want to play VFA. VFA had a bit of a stigma in those days, and I wasn't that keen.
They pay you out your contract, or?
So what happened is I went and I got some advice from a friend who said, go and see this bloke, he's really good. Guess who I saw? Jeff Brown.
Jeff Brown.
Current Collingwood president.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was a young bloke then, obviously. This is a long time ago. And I went into his office. He was an up-and-coming lawyer in those days. I don't know where he worked, but I found out and made an appointment. And he said, this is what I would advise you to do. Go into training, get your stuff on, and join in training. So I did that. The following night, I went with my gear and said, anyway, the players all greeted me back. Oh, good to see you, blah, blah, blah. And a couple of the coaches came and said, what are you doing? Oh, I'm training. I'm here to train. So I went and ran some laps, and John Northey saw me then when I was out in the ground, and I started to join in. And he went over and spoke to someone, so they called me over and took me inside, and the president was there and a few other committee men and said, oh, we can't have this. I said, well, I've got a contract. I stuck to my guns, and Jeff told me how to deal with it. So I've got a contract. You signed me for 3 years. I'm here to play. And they couldn't fit me on the list, the list. They could have played me to reserves because you don't want to be, you don't have to be on the list to play reserves. But I'd been taken off the list to make way for Brett Lovett, who had a long, very successful career at Melbourne. And, so they said, all right, we'll sort something out and we'll get in touch. So, okay, well, we'll see where we go. But I'll be here Thursday night.
Yeah.
That was the Tuesday night, and they got in touch with me the following day, and we came to an agreement. And I sat out of footy for a little while longer. It was about mid-season by then, so I left it fairly late. And I'd been going up and watched my brother play. He was playing for Sandhurst and studying there at the uni at the time. And they said, would you like to play? And I said, oh, yeah, I'd love to. So I played 10 games for Sandhurst.
Yeah.
And played some good footy up there. Really enjoyed playing on the QEO at Bendigo.
Yeah.
And I did well in the league, best and fairest. I think I got 14 votes again. I didn't win it, I only played 10 games. Yeah. And I think I did okay. Someone told me because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But we had a very good side, but we got beaten by Eaglehawk in the preliminary final, and Eaglehawk went on to play against Northern United, who won it. That was when Gavin Exel was playing for Northern United.
Oh,
went on to play for Carlton and Geelong, I think.
Yeah.
So that was good fun. So that was the end of my career at North. I will tell you a little story if you don't mind, because it's quite extraordinary that this is another stupid thing I did. But I was very young. And just to give you an idea, and people listening an idea of what we did in those days, not all the time, this was a one-off for me, but how you just couldn't get away with this sort of thing. Way back, it was 1976, so I was on the list and I'd played some reserves games, played a couple of senior games, but I was in the reserves at the time. So I trained on the Thursday night, and Newman College, this was in July, I'm pretty sure, because they always had their college ball, in the middle of the year. So that night was the college ball. So I went to the ball and had a few drinks and thought, that's no worries. No one here from North. No one will know me. It was at the St Kilda Town Hall. Had a car, drove all the friends back to Newman. We went into someone's room and had a few drinks. This was probably getting 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was going out with Maureen at the time, and she went home. And I thought, I'll go to bed. And I said, no, I'll just go back and have one more drink. So I had one more and then another one. Before you know it was sort of 4:30, 5 o'clock, and someone said, let's go down to the Waterside, the hotel. Now, do you know where the Waterside is? I think some AFL players own it now. I reckon Nick Revolt or Nathan Brown, maybe Doug Hawkins. There's a few of them in it. Yeah. They own it. Anyway, the Waterside pub is in King Street, just near Flinders, on the corner, I think, of Flinders and King maybe. And it's where the wharfies go when they've done their all-nighters, and they go in there for a beer in the morning.
For breakfast.
Mm. So we're in there. There's a stack of us from Newman in there and having drinks and making a bit of noise. And one of my mates comes in with the Herald Sun and says, Max, they call me Max sometimes, you're in the ones.
Really?
I couldn't believe it. Oh, my God. Because in those days, you didn't get told on the Thursday night whether you were playing the seniors. You just found out in the paper the following day.
Oh.
So I said, someone's got to take me home quick. So I hopped in someone's car and, there was people that were good in those days. Guys who had cars kept themselves sober. Yeah. And we got home safely and I just slept the whole day.
Yeah.
And Maureen was at breakfast and said, have you seen Save? I haven't seen him all day. I think he might be having a sleep. So she found out then that I'd had an all-nighter. Mm. Anyway, the other funny thing that happened is we played Geelong. Geelong comes up a lot. We played Geelong at Arden Street that day. I played on Mick Wilno. Yeah. And I was filmed. My game was filmed. So Barassi had this friend whose name was Barras, Neil Barras, I think his name was. and he was a video person, which was quite new in that field at the time, and he used to employ him to take video of a player each week, and it was my turn that day. I got the shock of my life on the Tuesday following, when Brad said, "I'll go over to Neil. He needs to spend some time with you after the game, after training, because he took a video of your game. Didn't take the whole game; it was different segments, and just watched myself." And
did you play all right, or
I went okay? We had a win, and I played okay on Mick Woolner, I remember.
Didn't throw up?
No, I'd already done a bit of that on the Friday. No, I'd sobered up well and truly, and but the reason I mentioned that is the difference between then and now. Now everyone's got a camera in their pocket these days.
That's right. Yeah.
Imagine you couldn't get away with that now.
No.
My God, that'd
Not
be
even close.
like a Jordan De Goey type thing.
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
that's right.
Virtually the day before the game.
Yeah.
And just ridiculous when I think back on it. But, I was young and I didn't do too many stupid things when I was young, I don't think, but that was one of them. But got away with it. I married my wife. That was the smartest thing I ever did.
Not what you said before.
She knows I was joking.
All right, so
so that was a bit of fun.
You managed 111 VFL games. That's a pretty extraordinary effort. Extraordinary.
Well,
so
thank you for that.
Before we get into our next chapter, I'm going to read our sponsors out. So, again, Season 2 of Two Blokes from Down Under is brought to us by Ken Muston Automotive. For all your motoring needs, pop down and see the team at Isuzu Ute, Ram Trucks, MG, Jeep, Subaru and Mercedes-Benz. It's Ken Muston Automotive, 215 Benalla Road, Shepparton. And this episode is brought to us by the Kingupna Football and Netball Club, home of the Mighty Roaders. The Roaders known as the family club, playing the Murray Football League. So if you like supporting local football and netball, make sure you check out this great club. You can find them on Catamatite Road, Kingupna, or check them out on their Facebook page. All right, Max. So...
Yes, Simon? What's your nickname?
I've got plenty. Plenty.
Gaffer.
The bearded burglar.
Yeah, I get that a little bit now. Ned Kelly. We obviously, what you said before, you finished at Melbourne, you went to Sandhurst in Bendigo. Mm-hmm. You then got contracted to the Shepparton Football Club.
Yep.
Where were you living, sorry? Just jump.
We were living in Essendon at the time.
Yep.
And look, it was a good day when this fellow knocked on the door and said, can I come and have a chat to you? He introduced himself. It was Daryl Twitt.
Oh, really?
Knocked on the door at Essendon, late in the year, and said, he'd been over to Bendigo, unbeknownst to me, to watch me play.
Yep.
Because they were after a coach. Now, they'd been in serious financial difficulty. They'd built their new club rooms, and something went wrong. I never found the details of it, and don't need to know, but they were in financial stress. Stuart Rowe, one of the wonderful players at the Shepparton Football Club for many years.
Yeah.
Bill, his father, I think, was president at one stage, and loyal supporters. And he had coached Shep for virtually nothing for a couple of years.
Rowie did?
Yeah. That's what I heard. And they'd hardly won a game. They might have won one game in 2 years or something. So they were down the bottom of the ladder and really struggling. And, Shep was one of the gun clubs in the GVL for many, many years. Tom Hayfield coached them all those premierships and everything. So it was pretty bad for the league and for the club, of course, to be in such dire straits financially and both on the field as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, Daryl Twitt knocked on the door and said, we'd like you to coach next year. What do you think? And I'd had some other offers. I'd had spoken to Wang Rovers briefly. Tasmania at Sandy Bay at Hobart had got in touch with me. Kerrang, I think, had got in touch with me. There was someone else, but anyway, I'd had other offers, and I was not offers, but I'd had contact from other people. But Shepparton certainly rang a bell with me because that's my wife's hometown.
Oh,
so she was raised on a farm in Arcadia, and went to school in Shep at Sacred Heart, which is now, of course, Notre Dame, St. Coleman's, and had her last 2 years, year 11 and 12, down at Star of the Sea in Gardenvale in Melbourne in a boarding school. And it made sense to go home, for her to go home. So it was a no-brainer for us.
Were you teaching at the time?
I was teaching, I'd started teaching in 79, was my first year of teaching, so I'd been teaching for 7-8 years in the western suburbs in Melbourne, and really enjoyed it out there. It was pretty tough going, but really cut my teeth as a teacher in the difficult western suburbs. And we moved to Shep in late 86, a week before Christmas, and bought a house in South Shep, and we still live in that same house now. Very happy.
You hadn't had kids at this stage?
Yes, we had 3 by then.
I was just going to
So
bring
we
that
started
in before.
early.
So in what year was the first one born?
So the first one, Catherine, was born in July 81. Then Josh was born in October 82. And then Sarah was born in January 85. And then we moved to Shep. Maureen was heavily pregnant, and Jessica was born in the March of 87.
So, yeah, that last 5 years of AFL was still teaching full-time,
Kids.
babies.
Yeah.
You had a bit going on, didn't you?
Oh, I had a very good wife. She did the lot.
Yep.
And I was very fortunate. We had a pretty good life. We loved each other's company. So, we had a really terrific social life with the footballers that we knew and knew well.
Yep.
And the football club looked after us. They were sensational, especially North. They had a great social atmosphere around at North Melbourne. And and Maureen, she loved raising the kids, and now she's raising not raising grandchildren, but loving the fact that she's got so many grandkids. And we spend a lot of time down at Geelong and Melbourne seeing our grandchildren, which is the love of our lives.
Yeah, for sure.
So we were very fortunate. I was very fortunate. She was a football widow in many respects.
Yeah.
But she loved watching the footy as well.
Yep.
And when the kids got older, they certainly got involved and loved coming to the footy. And I'd like to think they can remember me playing, but they were still pretty young.
Yeah.
So Shep obviously was down the bottom of the ladder when you came.
Yep.
Their thirds were very impressive, though. I think they won the flag that in 86.
They won 3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah.
I think under Kevin Hallahan.
Yeah.
They were recruiting heavily from Notre Dame, who had very good players, and Barry Connolly, I heard, had come across from United to Shep at one stage.
Really?
And had a year at Shep to find out why they were so successful. And he found out that they had this connection with Notre Dame, so he went back to United the following year. I think someone told me that. And then United became attached to Notre Dame, and they started having these gun third sides. But Shep had some brilliant players. Stephen Tingay is one that comes to mind. John Ahern, I think they both went to Melbourne.
They both played at Melbourne,
The Bicknells.
Craig Bicknell, Brandon
Nicky
Bicknell.
Patterson was another one.
Jason Sherlock.
Brendan went to Hawthorn, I think, didn't he? Jason Sherlock. He was later. He was a bit later, I think. Who else was there? I should have looked them up.
Craig McIntyre.
Craig McIntyre was there. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had a lot of... Simon Eastall.
Yeah,
he played later. He was a bit later.
Essendon Fremantle.
That's right.
Yeah.
So a lot of very good young kids.
So
Rocky Gagliardi, our local realtor.
He was there. Yeah.
He played.
How did you turn that around? How did you...
Well, we recruited pretty well. We had a tight budget, so we weren't able to offer big money or anything, but we had a lot of young kids come into the side.
Yeah.
And I can remember I was 30. I just turned 30. I was turning 31 that year. What year? 87. Yeah, I was turning 31 that year. Then Ken Murray was my assistant coach. He was probably 25, 26. Stuart Rowe was probably about 28, 29.
Yeah.
Darren Comey, full forward, he was about 24, I think, at the time.
Superstar.
The rest were 20 or under.
Yeah, okay.
Rick Coates was there. He was young, 20-year-old, I think. Can't remember any others who were... Oh, David Lewis. He was maybe mid-20s.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of young kids who came in and, became really good players because they had that bit of experience around them.
Yeah.
And we had a nice win in their first game over at Euroa. Jack Edwards was a bit involved. He wasn't president, but Jack Edwards, who's a Shepparton person through and through, and was president for years and years and years through the 50s and 60s. And knew Tom Havey well. He actually got Tom up one weekend to have a chat to me, and spent probably 2 hours sitting down talking to Tommy.
Yeah, okay.
He was brilliant. And we just seem to have found a bit of a nice groove. I got them really fit.
I heard that gruelling pre-season that year.
It was fairly gruelling, but I wanted to, I guess, stamp my mark on the importance of fitness, and I got myself fit too, so I managed to play most games that year, which was good. But we played Euroa, and I'm not sure where they finished the previous year, but we weren't expected to win that first game. We won it.
Yeah.
At quarter time, I had to get the trainer out, the doc out, because I got whacked across the ear, so I got 7 stitches.
Really?
Right across my eyebrow here. and I kicked 7 goals, so I had a goal per stitch.
Where did you line up?
I was playing full forward that day for some reason, so I might have, whenever I had a bit of a twinge or something, I'd sit myself at full forward because I reckon I could still do a service.
Yeah.
But I did play a lot in the centre during the year when I was fit enough to. But I can remember in those early games I was playing full forward just for balance. We had some good on-ballers. We had Jeff and Peter Lear, the twins.
Oh, yeah.
They were both very good players, and they sort of played midfield, half-back, sometimes half-forward.
Yeah.
Rick Coates was our young centre half-forward. So I was able to keep an eye on him and help him out. We had Robbie Heinrichs at full-back. He was a great full-back.
Yeah.
Fats Humphreys came across from Swanpool. Yeah. I think he started playing that year. I'm pretty sure he did.
Oh, I think he was
70, maybe the following year.
I think he was 88.
88.
Yeah.
Because we played in the grand final that year and lost to United. But we had a great side and a good atmosphere around the club when we started winning. And they were ready to get back up the ladder.
Yeah.
I timed it well. In regards to a really good admin. There was Dom Sebrafrio was involved. Kelly, can't remember his first name. Sorry about that, Cal, if you're listening. He was the treasurer. Who else? Lindsay Hooper, the vet. Yeah. Do you remember his sons?
Yeah.
Ashley and Jock. They both played in the seniors at later years, but Lindsay was the president and he was a hard worker, and we just had a real good feel about getting back off the bottom of the ladder, and the young guys were very hungry for success, as were the blokes who'd been there for a while.
Yeah, I was a Shep supporter back then. My old man was heavily involved in the Shep Footy Club. But,
that's right.
So I was only, 80? So I was probably 10 or 11 when you first started. So how did you go first year coaching? Did you spit on anyone?
No, I didn't. I hope I didn't. But look, I was fairly forceful as a coach. I've got a bit of a quiet voice, but when I'm on the football field, it changes a bit, and I can be fairly forceful. I remember one story. I'll tell this, and I hope Stuart Rowe doesn't get upset with me. But Bill Rowe was a huge influence on the club.
Yeah.
Hugely respected and still is. And Stuart had coached for a couple of years for virtually for nothing. We were playing to Tura at Deakin. And we were going okay, but we were behind, and Stuart was chasing this guy out of the back line, and he kicked it long into the forward line, and Stuart decked him after he kicked it and gave a free kick down the field, and I got the runner out, Bruce Dudgeon, who was my runner at Shep, and fantastic fellow, and he followed me out. Sorry, Bruce Williamson, I should say.
Yeah.
Not Dudge was there for a while, and Willow took over, sorry. But it was Dudge at the time, and I said, get him off. So... in front of the Shep crowd who loves Stuart Rowe, here he is being dragged just before three-quarter time. Anyway, Les Harrison was my assistant coach, and he came running up to me at three-quarter time when the sign went. He said, look, just prepare yourself. I think Bill Rowe's on the warpath. He's after some... He might say something to him. I said, okay, thanks for the warning. Anyway, I had a chat to Stuart when he came in, and he said, yeah, I know, I had to go on. I said, I had to do it. I've got to set the example.
Yeah, that's right.
And Stuart was fine with it. And Bill, I could see Bill behind me, behind Stuart, just staring me down. And I thought, this could go off. But he didn't say anything.
Yeah, okay.
And a lot of people saw me after the game. We finished up winning the game, had a good win. And they said, you had to do that. So I got the backing of the committee. And the most important thing was I got the backing from Stuart. He understood. And, I wanted to set the tone, I guess.
Well, Ben, I've seen him give some unbelievable sprays, to be honest. He doesn't like to lose, this man, at all.
When have you seen me do that? Surely not as a 10-year-old.
As an 11-year-old, they're getting done at half-time. So I thought I'll duck into the rooms and just stand on the chair because this might be on here.
Oh,
so Max walks in the rooms, just seething, just going, steam coming out the nose and ears. And this 44-gallon drum is sitting in front of him at the corner, which is a rubbish bin. And Max puts the boot into it and sent this 44-gallon drum 5 metres across the room. I'm like, holy shit, they're in for it now. They're going to get it now.
Oh, God.
Do you remember that?
Chip? No.
That was a chip, yeah.
Was it? Oh, dear.
Yeah.
I put those things out of my mind, I think, deliberately. I've got a brother-in-law who's got an extraordinary memory, and he tells me about things that he remembers from my footy days in Melbourne that I have no memory of.
Yeah.
I think he's making them up half the time.
Well, I remember that one clearly. That was gold.
I have given some sprays. I know that Travis Hampshire always reminds me of one up when I was at Kingupna up at Mulwala, and we were having a terrible first half. We were well behind. And apparently I was so frustrated that I hit myself about a dozen times on the forehead. When are you guys going to wake up? Like this. And he said he always remembers that one. But, I can remember it now when he reminds me of it.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever got personal with people.
I don't think you got personal.
I remember one person who I actually apologised to later, who I was a young kid and I'd heard that he'd been going out and, getting into the grog and stuff like that. And
what was his name?
No, I won't mention his name.
This is a chip?
But I found out later that he'd actually been off the grog for weeks.
Oh, okay.
And the next day we trained and I got the players together and I said, I've got to apologise to this guy because I made a mistake and I hope he forgave me.
Yeah.
But that's the only time because, Barras, as good as he was ahead of his time as a coach, very motivational.
Yeah.
Quite a progressive sort of coach in regards to his training methods and his tactics on the ground.
Yeah.
But he could get incredibly personal and put people down.
Okay.
And, I really liked him. I could have really good conversations with him after the game at times. You couldn't talk to him before the game.
Yeah.
He was just... You couldn't approach him. He was just too focused. And but when he let his hair down and after the game, you'd have a drink with him or whatever. And he was a good person to talk to. Really good conversationalist. But he could get terribly, terribly personal, which was just not the sort of thing I wanted to do. So I guess I learnt a lot from him, but I learnt what not to do as well. And I tried not to do that. I'm not saying that I didn't get personal sometimes. I hope I didn't hurt people's feelings.
I'm sure they're big boys and they get over it. It'll be fine.
Hopefully it tests them in other ways.
Did your school teaching come out in your coaching?
School teaching is very different to coaching football club. You've got to be very patient and understanding and more compassionate with young kids.
Yeah.
As you just pointed out that when you're coaching, you're dealing with men.
Yeah.
Unless you've got young kids in your side and you try and nurture them along and help them.
Yeah.
School kids, you're dealing with 13 to 18-year-olds who are, you don't know their background. They're reliant, dependent on their parents. So you don't know what's happening at home. You have to be more understanding and find out your facts before you go off like I did to that footballer.
Yeah.
And really know who you're dealing with.
Yeah, okay.
Tough job.
Yeah.
That school teachers do it hard.
Yeah.
It's getting harder.
Typical school
It's getting
teacher,
harder. I'll tell you, I would challenge anyone to be a school teacher and do it well because it is a very, very tough job.
Sure, it is tough. But, you used to be able to roost the ball a fair way. What's the biggest kick you've ever had?
The biggest kick, it might have been in the grand final at Kingupna.
Yeah, okay.
I kicked a goal just before quarter time, but there was a huge wind going down one end. Do you remember that game?
No.
You weren't there?
I went there in 91.
91. We played Katandra at Dookie, and there was a wind going straight down the ground. We had it in the first quarter, and we only kicked a couple of goals just before quarter time. And I got a handball from Chris Ford, and I think I was just inside the centre square, and I just had a crack at a torp, and the wind just caught it and took it over the umpire's head.
I'm pretty sure I can remember you kicking one from the centre at Deakin and launched a torp. I don't know if it went.
Impossible.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it went through, but it was pretty close.
Okay.
It would have went 70.
Yeah,
easy.
I enjoyed doing torps. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I can remember a funny one at Echuca, and Chris Smith. We were playing Chris Smith's side. At Marutna. He was coaching Marutna. And I went back and I was a little way out and I had a crack at a torp, so maybe 50 out, and it bounced off the top of the goalpost. I'd never seen that before. And Chris was standing behind me, he had a laugh and I had a laugh with it. I think we were winning well at them, otherwise I wouldn't have been laughing.
Yeah.
But it hit the top of the goalpost and bounced up. So I might have been only 40 or 50 metres out or something and I've kicked it high.
So when you say Chris Smith, ex-Fitzroy?
Fitzroy, yeah. He great footballer. He finished second to Brownlow one year, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and had a lot of success at Maroon. I think he won
Yeah.
2 flags there, maybe 2 in a row or something.
Yeah. So you didn't have a lot of success. Well, I shouldn't say you didn't have a lot of success, but you never won a flag at Shep, though.
No,
You got close.
We were very young in '88. We were younger than we were the previous year because we lost Stuart Rowe. That was a huge loss,
Yeah.
his experience. And we lost Darren Comey, who was a great full forward.
He went to see him.
A little bit difficult sort of guy to coach,
Yeah.
but a good bloke and a very good footballer.
Yeah.
Took a heavy, strong mark and
Yeah.
a big left foot kick on him. And he knew where the goals were. Loved
Yeah.
playing full forward. And I think he went over to Bendigo, maybe, that way.
Yeah, okay.
He was a Seymour boy,
Yeah.
but I think he went from Shep and lived in Seymour and used
Yeah.
to travel to play
Oh,
footy.
okay. Yep.
And I think he probably finished up playing some games at Seymour, but
Yeah, okay.
we lost those two and they were a huge shock to us. Unfortunately, Stuart went up to Tocumwal and coached them, and you know he had a good offer, and I can understand him leaving. But
Yeah.
so that made us younger. We had so many players in under 20 or so. Anthony
Yeah.
Stevens came to us that year
Yeah.
from Waiai, and he was just
So this was 88?
88. So he
Yeah.
might have been 16 or 17 or something.
Yeah, I
Very
think he
young.
was 16 or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he played good footy even
Yeah.
then. He was a hard nut at that young age. But United were experienced, and I think that was the difference. I remember Keith Wellman saying, I think on the Thursday night he came to training to see us on behalf of the league. He was
Yeah.
the secretary of the league, and he said, I think you're up against it. They're a very experienced side. And
Yeah.
look, it turned out to be true. We'd beaten them once during the year, lost by a couple of points in the prelim, beat Marutna by a point we lost to United in the second semi, and
Yeah.
so they went through, had a week off. We played Marutna, who'd beaten United in a couple of grand finals, I think.
Yeah.
So I think United were just hoping that we'd knock off Marutna, which we did by a point. And guess who kicked the winning point?
You.
No. No. I wouldn't have told you if I'd done it. Rowan Larkin,
I did have that name down.
who's
Yeah.
well known locally for his cricket, of
His
course.
cricket,
and his son's
yeah.
a very good cricketer.
Yeah.
But Rowan, who's a school teacher at Notre Dame, and he was playing in the forward flank or something. And I'd put myself down in the back line. We were kicking against the wind in the last quarter. I think there was a slight breeze, and I was trying to nullify Flash, Phil Murray, who
Yeah.
later became a teammate, of course.
Yeah.
And Clyde Francis was playing for them. Paddy Storer was his great mate of mine now. We
Yeah.
played together at Kingupna, and went down, and Rowan kicked the point, and the siren went a couple of minutes later, and we were pretty happy.
Yeah.
We were in a grand final, but as it turned out, we couldn't quite get there in the granny.
When you say experience, they had like 3 years in a row in the grand finals or something.
Yeah,
Or 3 or 4 or something like
That's
that.
a nice bit of experience as well.
Yeah, that's right.
To learn how to play grannies.
Yeah. Did you have a grand final parade?
What, in Shepparton? No.
Hey,
They still don't have one. What are you talking about?
But by then, had you tamed back the hair a bit?
Oh, probably. Yeah.
It had come back.
I think I had short hair.
It
in
had come
those
back.
days.
Yeah.
All right. So 91,
91, yeah.
you went to Kingupna.
Yes.
How'd that go for you? Did you get approached by them?
Yes. So
Yeah.
the strange thing was, and I won't mention any names, but Shep advertised for a coach at the end of the season. I thought I was going to go on at Shep.
Yeah.
And I went to the president and said, what's going on? I said, this is something we do every year. And I said, well, you haven't done it for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a bit strange. I thought, well, maybe they don't want me. And he said, no, we're just seeing who's out there. We'd like you to stay and coach, but we just want to see who's out there. And I said, well, if you want me to stay and coach, appoint me.
Yeah.
So there was obviously they wanted to go a different way.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, well, I've been approached by Kingupna, and I've decided, I'd let him know that I've decided to go. Chris Drum and Alan Culloch had found out that when they saw the ad, probably they came and knocked on the door and sat down and told me all about the club and where they'd been. They were desperate to play finals again. They'd had a few off years, and they told me that they'd been approaching lots of players across the GV to come out, and they'd had some really positive answers from them, but they just felt that if they could sign me as coach, that they'd come, and they did. Yeah. So we got some terrific recruits. We got Dean West from Shep and David Crowe. So Dean was our number one ruckman that following year in 91, and David Crowe was our centre forward.
Yeah.
He'd been playing thirds and hadn't been getting much of a go in the seniors, and he came out. From Marutna, we got Rick Vandendriest, Ben Drummond, and Pat Storer. Pat Storer was my assistant coach.
Yeah.
And from United, we got Richard Warburton, Chris Ford, who was the other assistant coach,
yeah.
and Paul Hicks.
Yeah.
And put myself in there. There's 9 players straight out of the GVL.
Yeah.
To put in this mix of Congupna players, and there were some rippers. We had 2 brilliant wingers in Mick Gleeson and Mark Simpson, who were absolutely magnificent. Peter Pyle at centre-half back. Sorry, fullback.
Fullback,
One of the best fullbacks they ever played in the Tugama League, I reckon. Flash Gordon was already out there. He'd played at Maroota against us, and he'd been out at Congupna a couple of years. So Warby and Flash, they made this fantastic couple of forwards.
Yeah.
And I reckon...
So did Warby go at 91?
91, yep. And he was there in 92 and 93. He played his last game in the grand final in 93. Yeah. And those 3 years were brilliant because I reckon Warby and Flash would have kicked over 300 goals in those 3 years.
Yeah.
Together. They were fantastic.
I got a claim to fame there in that 93, Ben. I played thirds.
I thought you were going to say you got the ball from behind the goals.
No.
Did the thirds win?
No.
Oh, because the reserves won in 93.
They did. Yeah, no, we didn't. We made the elimination final, I think.
So you didn't play on the grand final day?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. But I kicked 76 that year in the thirds.
76.
See, I knew you were a good player.
I bet Warby.
Jesus.
And I bet Flash as well. That's not up on the board, so they won a premiership, so I didn't really get counted. I spruiked that one out.
That's a big haul, though.
Not bad. Not bad.
What was it in thirds?
Yeah.
How old were you?
That year I was 17.
How big were you?
Oh, don't say that.
I don't mean in that way. I mean as in
6'1".
You're 6'1". How many kilos then?
No.
You could
92, 95.
Oh, you're a big boy then.
For a 17-year-old?
That's what I mean.
Somewhere there. Probably 90, somewhere around there.
Wow.
You just stood there and just marked.
You were a very nice kick, I remember, Simon.
Well, that faded away real quickly when I got a bit older. I was all right in the thirds, but couldn't kick in the seconds and that. So.
Okay.
So had some extraordinary footballers in that 91 side. So
Chris Bowe, who coached them previously, I think a couple of years back, he was there playing back flank. Kevin Pickering, who's tragically died.
Yeah.
He was on the other back flank. I've mentioned the wingers. We had Mark Tennant, who was an underrated back pocket player and did very well.
Yeah.
Who else was there? Andrew O'Donoghue was worth mentioning.
Yeah.
So he's Kevin, the current coach of his younger brother.
Young Dunny.
And Andrew was only 16 or 17 at the time, so same age as you. And we had him playing seniors and on a forward flank, and he was just a will-o'-the-wisp. Skinny little guy, but quick and knew where the goals were and very clever with his hands.
Yeah.
So he was brilliant.
So
Paul Hicks, of course.
What did you win that by?
Oh, it was the worst day for football. It was a shocking day. It rained, but not so much during the game, but the ground was heavy. Yeah. The wind was the key. It was a very strong wind, and we had the wind in the first quarter. I'm pretty sure we kicked 3 goals with it. We kicked 1 against it in the second quarter, so I think we were 4 goals, and they didn't take advantage of it. They kicked a lot of points. So there might have been 3 goals something to our 4 goals something at at half time. And we kept them goalless in the second half.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we had a good third quarter, but still didn't kick a lot. I think we might have been 5 goals something to their 3 at quarter time. And their points meant that they were only a couple of goals down.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we got 1 goal against it. So I think it was 6 goals something to 3 goals something.
Yeah, it was a low-scoring game.
Yeah, it was a terrible day for football.
What was it like to hold the cup back on your resume?
Well, the funny thing or the terrible thing that happened is the siren went and we started celebrating and we were in the middle of the ground and the heavens opened.
Oh.
It poured at half time when they played the 4th grand final.
Yeah.
But then it stopped and it didn't rain during the second half, but the ground was heavy and the wind was still going. And then the clouds just opened just after the siren.
Yeah.
And the thing I remember distinctly is I was with Paul Hicks and he had 2 young boys at the time and they were running out from their mother, and I looked across and the rain started and they just stopped and turned around and ran straight back to their mother. It was hilarious because it wasn't just light rain, it was heavy rain. It would have been hurting them. I'm not sure if it hailed, but it was really heavy rain and we ran and went inside.
Oh, you just...
Yeah, and we waited for it to calm down and then they brought us back out and they presented the awards, the cup and all the medals to each player under the... there's a bit of a grandstand there on the side of the the sort of hill. There's a bit of a ground atmosphere there. What do you call it? Amphitheatre type thing.
Yeah.
And they presented, and then we did a quick lap of honour and got inside.
Who got best on ground?
Who would that have been? I think everyone played well that day, Simon.
How'd you go?
I went okay. I have watched that game just recently because Rick Vanderdries came up for our reunion. We had a reunion this year because we couldn't do it because of COVID last year. And he'd put the tapes on DVD. I've got the tape at home, but it's terrible condition.
Yeah.
And so I sat down and watched it, and I had a good first quarter, but then very quiet second and third. I was playing on a back flank, but I had a good last quarter.
Yeah.
So that's what people remember. That's probably why they think I was maybe best. But I do remember.
I didn't say that.
I do remember that there's a thing called the 200 Club, and they gave me the award for best on ground.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Mark Simpson on the wing played very well. Who else? Paul Hicks played well. Chris Ford played well. Yeah. So the forwards really had it tough. There weren't too many goal kickers.
Yeah.
But it was mainly played mainly in the centre of the ground.
Yeah.
I played okay, I suppose.
So 92 didn't go. Did you make finals?
92, we made finals. We played Katandra, who were very strong that year in the prelim and got knocked out in the prelim.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Katandra played we played Mansfield in the prelim. I think I said that wrong. And Mansfield went on to play Katandra in the grand final. Katandra won.
Katandra won it. Under
Phil Squire. And it was a really good game at Shep East in the bright sunshine, beautiful day for footy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't remember a lot about that year. Don't remember the bad years, but we did okay. We still played finals. But the following year was a good year. Yeah.
So 93?
93 was a great year.
You still had a lot of those footballers still there?
I think there was maybe 10 or 12 who played in both.
Yeah.
But we had some good inclusions as well. So Warby and Flash were still going around.
Yeah.
Simon Murdoch. Do you remember Simon?
Docker Murdoch, yeah.
Shepparton.
Yeah.
He'd come out and he'd played a really good year on the back flank. And I think he might have won the best and fairest that year. He had a very good year.
I can't remember that.
Kevin O'Donoghue, the current coach.
Yep.
Mark Tennant had left and Kevin came in and played on a back pocket, and he was a very good footballer.
Yeah.
Had a really terrific vision and used the ball well. Ken Petty had missed out on the 91 flag. He had kidney issues and had got over those.
Yeah.
Not sure whether he's got one kidney or not.
He's got one. Yeah, I believe he's got the one, yeah.
Yeah, but he played, and we played Benalla All Blacks in the grand final, and they had a guy called Shorty Martinello. John Martinello, I think his proper name is. Shorty they called him because he was tiny, but, built, really thick-set fellow and strong as an ox, and he just used to rake up 30 or 40 possessions a game without even trying. Good friends, Johnny Brunner, I think, who was playing for Peru at the time. Another very good rover from Benalla. But I said to Ken Petty, I'm going to play you in the centre. I was playing back flank myself at the time. And I want you to tag Martinello and try and keep him to, if you can keep him to 20, 25 possessions, you're doing well and you'll be a great service too.
Yeah.
Anyway, Shorty Martinello had about 45 possessions and got best on the ground. Ken didn't go anywhere near him, but Ken had a good 25, 30 possessions himself and was a very, very good player for us on the day.
Yeah.
So it turned out quite well, but it was a close game. We were lucky to get away with it.
Yeah. Who was the big bloke they had on that they brought in just for...
Yeah, was it Roberts? Big bloke they brought in for what?
To king hit people.
Oh, no, I don't remember him. I know they had a plan to take Warby out of the game.
Yeah.
But that didn't work. Warby was too smart for that.
Yeah.
They were trying to. They were going to get the fullback on a kick in to play on, and this guy was going to, and he was going to dart the other way, go one way and then dart the other way. So Warby was wrong footed.
Yeah.
And this guy was going to come across and give him a heavy shepherd and take him out.
Okay.
And make it look like it was in the play. That was their goal, I believe. I only heard that recently, actually.
How often did you get targeted as a player?
I was lucky. I didn't get targeted much at all.
Other than 7 stitches?
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. That was Chris Thompson, who was a lovely fellow. I played tennis against him years later. Yeah, really good bloke. But
did you get targeted? You were playing Shep, so I'll go back a little bit. Was it a game in Echuca? And you got knocked out in the first couple of minutes?
Yeah. That was the first semi-final, or it might have been elimination. No, first semi, I think, that's right. And we played Marutna at Echuca, and I can just remember someone getting the ball and running past me. I was on a forward flank, and I went to Shepherd, and that's pretty much...
That's all you remember?
All I remember. I can remember running around like an idiot. And they took me off just before quarter time, so I only lasted about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And apparently, I don't remember, of course, but apparently I was just carrying on saying silly things like, oh, we're playing Marutna, how are we going? Oh, sorry, we're playing Yarrawonga. So Marutna wear the Geelong colours, Yarrawonga. So I'd gone back to my early days in the O&M thinking we were playing Yarrawonga. So I was definitely concussed and affected.
Your brother played that game too, didn't he?
No.
Didn't he?
No,
your brother was in the crowd, that was right.
He would have been watching.
Yeah, that's
right. He came later.
He was, I think he was a little vocal in the crowd too. You said he was a bit madder than you.
Yeah, he was a strong man. He
was a little
he would have
vocal
been
in
out
the
there
crowd.
defending me if he had an opportunity.
I'm pretty sure he yelled out
But
something.
Ken Murray took over as coach that day, and we came back. We were well down at quarter time, and we came back and had a good win. So we went on and played the prelim the following week. We played Lemnos down at Seymour, and I'd gone to John Badrotti, our club doctor, and said, well, what do you think? I'm feeling good. These days I would never have been allowed to play.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But I said, what do you think about a helmet? And I think his words were, no, they're not worth it. They don't do a thing. Mm-hmm. So I played okay the following week, and then we went in and played that must have been the first semi, because we played United in the prelim. That was my first year, and we got beaten in the prelim. Yeah, okay. And they went on and won the flag against Echuca the following week.
Did you get targeted in the Tungamar League at all?
No, I've got no memory of being targeted. I got knocked out once against Shep East out at Congupna, but I don't think I was targeted. Maybe, I don't know, in the course of the play and someone sees me there, they might think, oh yeah, I'll take him out. But that happens to a lot of players.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't think anyone really had plans to get me out of the game. I hope not.
All right, so 93, you won a flag again?
93, we had a great year. That was Warby's last game, of course. Yeah. There is a funny story there, which I'll tell you.
Yeah.
In the second semi, we beat All Blacks.
Yeah.
And so we had the week off. And on the Monday of our week off, I thought we'll have a light week this week and take it easy. And we were out there on the Tuesday. I said, we're just going to go for a run and then do some simple ball drills when we get back. And there's a road, like Congupna East Road, I think it runs down that way through Congupna. So off we went, running. And I'd gone for maybe half a mile or so, and I felt my calf go. So I let the players go, keep going, go down that far, Ken will look after you. And he's the assistant coach at the time, Ken Murray had come out. I've got him out of retirement to play that year. That's right, that's another one I forgot to mention. Yeah. And I limped back and I said, oh God, I iced it straight away. And I thought, oh hell, I've got 10 days to get myself right for the grand final. So I did all the treatment, didn't train at all for the week and a half. All Blacks won the prelim and went into the grand final, so we're meeting them again. And I went to Paul O'Dwyer, who's a good friend of mine, and was my doctor for many years. And I said, what can I do? And I said, I've got this jab or I've got this jab, the light one or the heavy one. And I said, well, how does it work? I said, well, I'll come out there on the morning and I'll jab you about half an hour before the game. I said, okay, I think I've got to do that because I wanted to play, desperately wanted to play. I was playing on Anthony Butt, and I was on the back flank, he was forward flank, and so he gave me the light jab, and I went for a bit of a jog, and it felt pretty good. And I thought, thank God for that, it's good. Halfway through the first quarter, of course, bang, she goes, oh no, this isn't feeling good at all, and I was, I wasn't real flash. So I got the runner out, who was Bruce Williamson, again. Yeah. I said, look, just keep this under your hat, but I need someone to go and find Dr. Paul O'Dwyer and tell him I need the heavy dose. He gave me the light one. I said, I need the heavy dose at quarter time. So off he runs. I said, oh God, I hope that works. And then over the PA system comes, would Dr. Paul O'Dwyer please come to the Congupna group? They couldn't find him, obviously. So here I am with the group of players around me at quarter time, getting this couple of jabs in my calf. Anyway, long story short, I got through the game and we won by only a goal, I think, maybe less than a goal. And we survived. And I can remember they kicked a point with not long to go, and I was in the back line. I said, I'll take the kick out, Gomer. And Simon Murdoch made a lead out wide. I should have taken it because their ruckman then ran over. I said, our ruckman's free, because he went over to cover Simon.
Yeah.
And Andrew Woods, who'd played it, he was best on ground by a long way that day. He was sort of centre right, so I thought I'll kick it to him. Anyway, I kicked it to him, but he didn't mark it, and it came straight back, and it went to a guy called Sharp, who was a local Benalla copper, who was their full forward. He marked it about 40 yards out. Oh, no. So he goes back, kicks a point. That would have put him in front. If he kicked a goal, it would have put him in front. I said, Gomer, you've got the kick out. Gomer's Peter Pyle, fullback.
Pyle, yeah.
So I gave him the kick out, and it went out my side and came back in. I think I took a mark. I was in the back pocket. Well, I reckon we only won by maybe 5 points or something.
Okay.
And the siren went. I had the ball when the siren went, so I was pretty happy to hear that siren.
Did you play on after that? Like, did you play the following year?
Yeah, I played in '94. Once again, we made finals but lost the first semi, I think, and I announced my retirement then. And Shep approached me to come and help out with Rod McPherson, who was coaching Shep at the time, and they'd won 2 in a row. They'd won under a bloke who won it in '93. I can't remember his name, but he then left, and Rod McPherson took over and won the flag in '94. I went there in '95 and helped out, and they made the finals but lost in the second semi, I think, or first semi. And then Congupna asked me to come back. So I came back, and I was going to be a non-playing coach, but I finished up playing some games in '96 when I turned 40 that year.
Yeah,
so that was my last year of playing coach.
Yeah.
Then in '97, they were successful. They were in the second division of the Goulburn Valley League. Remember that? The Tungamar League broke up.
Yeah, that's right.
And we weren't happy with it, and we wanted to go into the Murray League.
Yeah.
And we were successful. We had to actually go to appeal, and we won the appeal and went to the Murray League. Mick Holding, great Congupna person, was the main person there who won us that. And I was non-playing coach in the Murray League, and we had some good players. Chris Farrell came up from Melbourne, played. Sean Gordon, great rover. We had a lot of other good players, and we had a really poor first half of the year, but we started winning.
That was '97.
That was '97, and we needed to win the last 4 games. And I think we'd won 3 of them, and we just missed the finals, maybe by percentage or a couple of points.
Yeah.
And then the following year, I went to the Bushies then, and the following year, Mick McCurry, was it?
Yeah, Mick Gurry.
Gurry. That's right, Mick Gurry. He coached them, and they got in the grand final and lost to, I think,
they played
Cobram.
They
the
played
Tigers.
at Toke. Yeah.
Played at Toke and lost to Cobram. Trav was playing that day. Travis Hampshire played centre forward. So
Fats Humphrey played that game.
They went close.
I think Mick
Fats
Toke
went out there,
playing.
didn't
Yeah, he was there then.
Okay.
That's the year Mark Bullen played as a 16-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he played in the grand final?
Grand final.
Okay.
Shout out to Bully, one of our previous guests. So.
Hi, Bully. It's his birthday the other day, I think.
Yeah, he's getting old.
So that was a good time. I really enjoyed Congupna and had some great times there.
So when did you go to the Bushies? 98?
98, I went there as the local base coach here in Shepparton. So I used to look after the players on a Monday night.
Yeah.
And then it was my job to get the minibus and be at a particular place. And they all came from the schools and, Kyabram and Tat and all those places. They had to meet at a certain place at about 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I'd drive them over to Wangaratta, and we'd all train over there under Kelly O'Donnell.
Yeah.
And I'd bring them back and take the minibus back and go home. So that was my Wednesday night.
You had some great kids.
Quite enjoyed that, but geez, they won the flag that year under Kelly O'Donnell at the MCG, and they were a brilliant side. So Murray Vance, United, with the local guys, Josh Fraser, it's Mansfield, but Craig Edney was the rover from Yarra. Had a great career at Yarra after Richmond, of course, and Josh was at Collingwood. Oh gosh, I should have done my homework. Have you got the list there by any chance?
I don't, no.
But a lot of good players.
Yeah.
I remember...
Derek Murray, did he play that year?
Derek Murray, he was captain with John Shields.
Yeah.
They were co-captains. The thing I remember about the grand final is there was a guy called Chris Lamb at fullback. I think he went to Melbourne for a little while. There was a lot of drafted players. He was fullback, and we played Geelong Falcons in the grand final and knocked them off. And guess who he was playing on? Ling. Cameron Ling.
Oh, Cameron Ling.
Cameron Ling was a full forward, big red, young, strapping, big head. Turned out to be a wonderful fellow and a great leader at Geelong and had huge success there. But he was a full forward in the under 18s.
I did hear that. I did know that.
And I remember Kelly saying to Lammy, you've got to put him off his game by attacking every opportunity you get. And there was a free kick paid on the forward flank, and everyone, not just Chris, thought it was the Bushies free, and he took off and ran. And the umpire said, no, Geelong. And the Geelong guy got it and just kicked it up because Cameron Ling didn't chase Chris. He was standing on his own in the goal square and kicked the first goal of the game.
Yeah.
Didn't get many more, I can't remember really, but I don't think he kicked many that day. But we finished up having a great win, and so that was a nice way to start my career at Bushies, just as assistant coach. With Neville Hogan was the other assistant coach from the Wangaratta area.
Yeah.
And I mentioned him earlier. I'd played against him on him. He was a legend at Wang Rovers.
Yeah. Okay.
And, brilliant player, won the Morris Medal, maybe a couple. Coached Wang Rovers. He was the other assistant coach, so it was great to get to meet him and get to know him after having played on him for so many years before then.
So you did the Bushies for a few years as assistant.
I was 3 years, 98, 99 and 2000, and then Kelly got the job at Freo as assistant coach at Freo. I think he went straight to Freo from there. And John Byrne approached me and said, what do you think? And I said, well, I'd have to sort it out with my school. Yeah. And you're entitled to get 2 years leave without pay if you apply, and the principal agrees to it. So Morris Sleep was principal at Wanganui at the time. He said, yep. And it wasn't just coaching, it was a full-time job as what's called Victorian Football Development Manager.
Yeah, okay.
So I would not just coach the Bushrangers, but I would run lots of clinics around the place. I would support primary schools with gear and stuff, and took that around. I ran coach accreditation courses. Yeah, okay. In Wangaratta, Albury, here in Shep. What else was there? Auskick. There was a lot involved in Auskick, so it was a fairly involved job, but I really enjoyed it. And I was at a stage where teaching, wasn't thrilling me. I always enjoyed teaching, but I wanted to find out whether there was a future for me in coaching at the AFL level. Yeah. But I really enjoyed the Bushies. I had 5 years there as a senior coach, and then decided that no, I didn't want to move to Melbourne. I was really enjoying living in Shep, and I wanted to get back into teaching and revive my love for teaching. And I had, I think, 1 year, 2005-06, 2 years as with a position of responsibility at Wanganui, and then I applied for the assistant principal's position. And I had that from 2011 to 2021 last year. Yeah, okay. So I did 15 years as a assistant principal, and pretty happy that I didn't go to the AFL. Yeah.
Did you get approached by AFL to coach?
No, I would have had to have applied for it.
You would have had to apply for it, yeah.
So the fact that I didn't get approached probably says something too. Yeah. Maybe they didn't want me.
Pretty unbelievable career though, isn't it? So it's
very long one.
Yeah, it's
Look, I was fortunate in the early days when I was getting those soft tissue injuries. It could have resulted in a very short career.
Yeah, that's true too.
But I didn't have any serious injuries. I didn't have knee operations like my brother needed. Nothing really over the top. Yeah. So I was able to keep my fitness up pretty well. Yeah. And I never put on a lot of weight, which helped a lot in regards to staying injury free. So I was fortunate in that respect that I had the right body shape to hold myself in those later years.
So nowadays it's chase the grandkids around?
Yes, we do a fair bit of travelling. So I'm looking forward to seeing that cost of petrol go down, because we're spending a bit on petrol. But we probably spend more weekends away than we spend here in Shep at the moment.
Yeah. And that's with the kids and the grandkids?
Oh, yeah, we love getting down there. And Maureen's she was a wonderful mother and now a brilliant grandmother. And the kids are all great. Catherine's doing a great job. She's back at teaching now. She's the one in Geelong. She teaches at St. Joey's and has the 4 girls. They're all at primary school now. Yeah. Joshua's in Burwood. He's got a huge job at Channel 7. He did a marketing and sports management degrees. Yeah. He does all the advertising on the sports show. He's heavily involved in the Commonwealth Games at the moment.
Okay.
So he's got a big job there at Docklands at Channel 7. Yeah. And the 2 boys and the 2 girls, he's named his oldest boy Xavier, so that's nice. And they're going brilliantly in Burwood and really enjoying life. So they've got 3 at primary school and 1 will start primary in a couple of years. Yeah. And then Sarah's in Geelong as well, and with 2 girls. A girl and a boy, Harriet and Raph. He's the new one, about 12 weeks old. And Jessica and her partner Tom are in Port Melbourne. He's a myotherapist, so I'll have to, use his
use his abilities for sure
to look after me down the track. But they're going well too. So very fortunate to have 4 wonderful children with 4 wonderful partners and their own children. And we're very lucky.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, as I said, unbelievable career. It's something that you should be very proud of, and I'm sure most people are pretty proud of what you've done and what you've achieved, and some great highlights and 3 flags, which is pretty good.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it because I don't normally. It's the first time I've done anything like this, so it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. So,
Simon's got one more thing he does to everyone before they leave.
Okay.
So we ask everyone who, every guest we ask them a series of 3 questions.
Okay.
So first one is, what was your first car?
My first car was a Holden Kingswood.
Holden Kingswood.
Yeah. So my father and mum had a Holden Kingswood.
Yeah.
And in 75, they said they're buying a new car. So do you want to buy the old one off us? So I thought, yep, that sounds pretty good. I think I paid $1,500 for it.
Didn't give it to her.
No, they wouldn't give it to me.
6 kids, you got to
support.
So I had that for probably 7 or 8 years.
Do you have a name for it?
No, just a car.
Just a car.
I don't name my cars.
Okay. What's your favourite food?
Oh gosh, I can't go past a lamb sandwich.
A lamb sandwich.
Yeah, haven't you had a lamb? Put lamb down and put some little bit of a homemade sauce on top and a bit of cheese and toast it. That's the ants pants.
Sounds pretty good. I'm pretty hungry at the
That's
moment.
not bad,
Yeah.
Or pasta. Pasta's pretty good.
Pasta's
but
good.
I eat most foods. Apart from, as my grandchildren will tell you, I cannot stand cucumber.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm on the same level there. I hate the shit, so it's terrible. Absolutely
Not too many things I don't eat.
Yeah, no, I can't do that either. So, all right, last one. 3 people you'd invite to dinner. Any era, dead or alive?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm a bit of a political beast, so Michelle Obama, I think, would be one.
Okay.
I reckon she's pretty sensational.
Yep.
Nelson Mandela would be another one.
Oh, that'd be a good one. Yeah.
I think he'd be fantastic, and my mother, if I could.
Mother.
Yeah, she was, she was brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant person, and my father was great too. But Mum was the talker, conversationalist, and she would hold her own in any company.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think she would hold her own with Nelson Mandela and Michelle Obama, no problem, and I would just sit back and listen.
Who would cook?
She'd have to cook. I can't cook.
Lamb sandwiches.
She was a good cook. My father wasn't much of an eater, so she didn't get a chance to experiment on us or Dad very much because he wasn't much of a eater. And it was very typical of those days. There wasn't the same attention to food, the detail we put to food these days, which is a brilliant part of our society, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Especially with the multicultural nature of Australia, and we got so much on offer.
Yeah, that's right.
We're very lucky, I think.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you, Xavier, for coming in. So I called him Xavier instead of Max. So
appreciate it.
Thanks very much for coming in. It's much appreciated. It's certainly a great story, as I said, and it's one that we'd love to share. So it's fantastic.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Ben. It's been great. I've really enjoyed the opportunity, and hopefully I rekindle some memories from people who listen to this podcast about some of the things I've talked about.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
Yep,
so
for sure.
Awesome. So, again, guys, Season 2 of Two Blokes from Down Under is brought to us by Ken Muston Automotive. For all your motoring needs, pop down and see the team for Isuzu Ute, Ram Trucks, MG, Jeep, Subaru and Mercedes-Benz. That's Ken Muston Automotive, 215 Benalla Road, Shepparton. And this episode is brought to us by the Kingupna Football and Netball Club, home of the Mighty Roaders. The Roaders known as the family club in the Murray Football League. So if you're supporting local football or netball, make sure you check out this great club. You can find them at Catamatite Road, Kingupna, or check them out on Facebook. So there you go, guys. Another episode. Fantastic one. Great memories there. So stay tuned for the next one. We can't wait. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, show him I can still rap, though. Now I'm in the game, I was on the bench. First I was renting, now I'm collecting rent. First it with the Beamer, now I want the Benz. Spending all the bag like, here I go again.